don't hear him through my headphone.
Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Bill is still muted.
Okay. I checked everybody's mute button on the headset. Everybody should be on, but make sure that you're not muted on the computer.
I was muted. Yeah.
I can
He's
hear
on
you
now.
now, Bill.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. No. Are you muted? Check your laptop.
3, 2, 1.
There we go.
Can you guys hear me?
Good.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
We're a year in and we still don't know how to do this stuff. Nothing. I'll talk to you when you're unmuted.
That's because your chairman is forgetful. So, okay. Now we'll try it again. Rich, are you ready? Rich, are you ready? Okay. We'll try it again. Let's call to order this May meeting of the MPO Citizens Advisory Committee. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for those members of the committee who are able to join us here in person on the 18th floor of the county center. As is our custom, let's call the roll, and if you would identify yourselves and what organization you represent and or what organization appointed you, that would be very helpful. Cheryl, are you going to call the roll?
Actually, this is Gail. I am stepping in now for Cheryl, and I will go ahead and take care of that for you. So we're going to start with David Bailey.
Good morning, everyone. My name is David Bailey. I'm appointed by Commissioner Overman.
Carolyn Brown.
Good morning, everyone. This is Carolyn Brown, appointed by Commissioner Gwen Myers.
Hoyt Prindle. Vivian Handy. Stephen Hollenkemp.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Stephen Hollenkemp. I was appointed by the City of Plant City.
Nicole Rice. Alexis Bobak.
Morning, everyone. I'm Alexis Bobak. I was appointed by Councilman Dingfelder.
Christina Costa.
Good morning, all. I'm Christina Costa, and I was appointed by City Councilman Joseph Citro.
Artie Fryer. Or Nancy Castellano. Bill Roberts.
Good morning. I'm Bill Roberts. I was appointed by the Aviation Authority.
Edward Mears. Please help me with that one. I don't know that last name.
Brzezinski.
Actually,
Mr. Mazursky is retired.
Okay, thank you. And then Nicholas Glover.
Good morning, everyone. Nicholas Glover, and I'm the Hart appointee.
Don Skelton. Jeff Lucas. Beatrice Zafra or Jonathan Knudsen.
Morning, everyone. My name is Beatrice Zafra. I'm the under 30 representative.
Cliff Rice.
Good morning. At large, appointed by neighborhoods.
Sharon Gomond or Eric Lamb. Ricardo Fernandez.
Here, appointed by you guys, Hispanic at large.
Terrence Trott. Amy Espinoza.
Good morning, everyone. I hold the at-large seat representing women.
Rick Richmond.
Good morning, everybody. Rick Richmond, appointed by the Planning Commission.
And Barbara Kennedy Gibson.
Oh, this
All
is
right.
Terrence. Did you guys hear me when I typed in before?
No, but I've got you now.
Okay. Good morning, Terrence Trott, African American at large seat.
Good. Thank you, Terrence. Anyone else that we did not recognize? Well, Gail, I want to welcome you and thank you for helping us with the roll call and the introductions. I want to welcome Nicholas Glover, our newest member who is on the committee and joining us here in person. Nick, welcome. Good to have you representing Hart. At this point in the agenda, we'll see if there is any public comment. Anyone signed up or available wishing to speak?
Yes, I'm here for public comment.
See, there's no one signed up.
There was one person. Can you identify yourself, please?
Yes, this is Josh Frank.
Oh, hello, Josh. Welcome. You got 3 minutes, Josh. You're recognized.
Hello, board. Thank you, Chair. It's good to see you. Good to see Christine. Nicholas, congratulations on your appointment, and welcome to the MPO CAC. For those of you who don't know me or know the project, I'm Josh Frank. I'm the creator and architect behind the Boulevard Tampa project, which is the study that is going to be, I believe, discussed coming up on your agenda this afternoon. In short, it's a community advocacy study, one of 10 around the country that was nominated for the 2019 Freeways Without Futures report run by the Congress for New Urbanism every 2 years. I'm anticipating we will also be on the 2021 top 10 Freeways Without Futures report. And that's really significant because it's one of 10 interstates that run through an urban area in the country that not only could be removed, but have been determined they should be removed by a national panel of experts in urban design, planning, architecture, landscape architecture, et cetera. So it's a really big deal. We're the only one in Florida, and we're going to hopefully be in the report twice, 2 years in a row. I have seen the topic that's later coming up on your agenda. You know, I know that there's been some comments from the previous meeting about the price point for the study created by Sam Schwartz for the MPO and the Planning Commission. I personally believe that $800,000 figure that was presented is exorbitant. It's something that really is probably, if I had to guess, in knowing Sam Schwartz as an engineering office, first and foremost, is being looked at a sense from exactly what it's going to look like, how it's going to work, even down to signals and intersections and lane widths and the nuts and bolts. Whereas I really believe the question as to why and what this project could be has not fully been answered. I attempted to answer some of it, but that to me is where this initial first step should be. And so I would just say that the comments from the board representing the desire to split it into smaller pieces, I think that's a fantastic idea. And I would suggest that a broader framework plan answering those questions of why and what and not necessarily how be the direction that is recommended moving forward. So with that, I would just ask that if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me independently, obviously, to avoid sunshine laws. And also, feel free to visit boulevardtampa.com, which goes over some of the background of the project of what I've done. And keep an eye out for Freeways Without Futures 21, which will be coming out here hopefully in June. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else signed up or wishing to speak in the public comment period? Rich Clarendon?
No, it's I don't believe it's anybody else wishing to speak. However, I did want to note that I think Jeff Lucas joined us, a member.
Good. Good. Thank you. Welcome, Jeff. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. if there's no one else signed up to speak for public comment, we'll close that portion of our agenda. We will move into the agenda item called members' interest. Are there any members that would like to bring up a discussion item, preferably for a future meeting? Mr. Fernandez is recognized.
I don't hear him through my headphone.
Okay, now? Okay. This is a recommendation, suggestion, if you will, especially to new members of the committee, and probably wouldn't hurt some of us who've been around a while. The tip review was handled by this committee June 10 of last year. We're about to go through that process again, beginning today and then the next meeting. What I'm suggesting is that you may want to pull up the YouTube video for the June 10 meeting, or maybe a copy of the minutes from that meeting to see what it is we did, the motions that were made and the actions that were taken by this committee. There's really very little you can do to prepare for these meetings other than having actually been there and watched it and gone through it. So especially for those of you who haven't had that opportunity, this is a way to do it vicariously, virtually, if you will, since we know all about that now. Also, the MPO tip review, the actual big meeting, was June 30 of last year. That also should be available to us by YouTube. You might find it instructional to review that. And I'll ask MPO staff, I don't think it'd be that huge of a problem, maybe, easy for me to say, if maybe you could give us some suggestions of sections of the YouTube video that are particularly significant for purposes of the tip review, since those videos tend to go on for 3 or 4 hours. There might be particular counts, maybe an hour or so that would be particularly helpful to review. So that might be helpful. And the other thing I had, Chair, and then I'll shut up. At last year's meeting, June 10 of 2020, this committee made the recommendation to the big board that the DOT conduct updated traffic counts to see what effect the pandemic has had on our traffic flows in the area. At that point in time, we had been told by FDOT that traffic counts were down about 38%. And a lot of people on the committee felt it was too soon to be making any assumptions from that, given we were talking about June and we were only a few weeks into the pandemic process. But we're far enough along now, and people, I think, are getting back to normal to some degree, to see how, if at all, our work-life balance has changed during the pandemic and what effect that might have on traffic counts, since all of the discussions we're having about road widenings and the like are all based on assumptions that traffic is going to increase. I'm not at all sure that's true. So I would renew my request and ask for some report from the staff as to what happened with that motion, if any action was ever taken by DOT to do those traffic counts, because I don't remember getting any report on it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for those comments and reminders. Rick, anyone else have something under members' interest? I'm seeing no hands in the room. Anyone virtually? Nope, apparently not.
I'll identify myself verbally, Mr. Chair, since you can't see my hand.
I cannot. Go ahead, Hoyt.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, I had the pleasure to spend about 5 days in Seattle last month, and just quite interesting to see many of the changes they've made to make their city a more walkable and bike-friendly committee and more focused on public transit. The amount of dedicated bike lanes in Seattle, despite the hills, which make them quite difficult to traverse, is very impressive. They have an impressive light rail system. But one of the projects that stood out to me, and it's a project that's been used in Boston and elsewhere, is to take an otherwise old and efficient freeway and to tear it down and tunnel it to return space to the public for use in other ways. And so one of the projects that I got to see from the last time I was there was they had an elevated freeway called the Alaska Way Viaduct, which was essentially a block from the water there that cut off the entire downtown waterfront from downtown. It was an eyesore and it was falling apart, and it was very interesting to be back now that they've completely torn that out and they've essentially put a tunnel that goes from essentially Safeco Field to the north side of downtown to reroute most of that traffic. And it was nice to see all of the infill development and other things that have been occurring since that particular portion of the freeway was torn out. And I bring that up as given the boulevard discussion that we regularly have on this committee, because you know, the constant assumption by some is that you know, tearing out a freeway in a downtown urban area can only be a net negative to the area's traffic flow and to transportation in the area. And I think in places like Seattle and Boston, that's definitely proven not to be the case. So I just thought I would share that particular point of interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Hart, for bringing that to our attention. Christine Acosta, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I just, Mr. Prindle and Mr. Fernandez's remarks result in my request that we add to our agenda in the future a topic called transportation demand management. What is it and how does it work? Seattle is a leading example, and you may know or have seen the Tampa Bay Partnerships Constant Scorecard cite Seattle as being top in this category and really just top in a lot of different transportation and quality of life categories. But I would like to suggest that we engage some experts locally on transportation demand management so that everybody here is familiar with it and what it means and how policy and best practices could be deployed to help advance the notion of transportation decisions being made available on a trip-by-trip basis.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that suggestion. We'll ask Mr. Clarendon to make a note of that and see what the staff can come up with for a future meeting. All right, Rich?
Sure.
Okay. Any other committee members want to raise a member's interest item? Nope. Seeing none in the room. I don't see any virtual hands up, so we'll close this portion of the meeting and move to the next item on the agenda. That is the approval of the minutes of our April 7th meeting. The minutes were distributed in your packets and available for review. Are there any questions about the minutes? If not, do I hear a motion for approval?
Amy Espinosa will make a motion for approval.
All right, thank you, Amy. Mr. Fernandez, second to Amy Espinosa's motion. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none and seeing no hands, all those in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposition?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved unanimously. All right. The next item on our agenda are the action items scheduled for this month. We do have a quorum here physically present in the county center, so we are able to take action. The first item on our agenda under action items is the MPO FDOT George certification statement. Dr. Johnny Wong, are you going to present still?
Morning, CAC. Can someone allow me to be the presenter, please? There we go. Give me 1 sec to figure out how to share my screen properly.
Okay.
All right, can you all see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So good morning, CAC, Johnny Wong, MPO staff, and this morning I'm going to share with you the results of our MPO FDOT joint certification. I'm happy to share this news because it's always great to start off the CAC with great news. So the joint certification is a review process of the MPO's planning activities, financial activities, and basically a review of all the requirements that are placed upon MPOs, either by federal agencies or at the state level. The joint certification happens every year with FDOT. So they go through all of our books and our planning processes and identify areas where we're doing a great job, areas that could be improved, and also note any corrective actions that need to be fixed prior to us getting the official sign off sometime in the June timeframe. So that happens every year. Every 4 years, we are treated to a site visit by the Federal Highway Administration. And that's a little bit more of a detailed review of our planning processes, where they go through everything that the MPO is responsible for in painstaking detail. This year, we actually had to do both at the same time. So this was a big effort. But for now, I'm only going to be going over the results of the joint certification because we haven't yet gotten the final report from the feds. In essence, this whole process is just a report card to identify how we're doing and let us know where we can improve. So I'll kick right off and get to the notable achievements. District 7 staff told us that we were doing a great job in a number of different areas. One of the areas that they highlighted was the data and analytics platform. This is a project that my team manages, and it's been in the works for several years, in fact. Just last year, we were able to launch the first data platform that has crash data and congestion and incident data. And having this platform has allowed us to improve our planning efficiency and save a lot of time doing analysis. Prior to having this platform launched, we would spend countless hours calculating the data for performance measures and the data that goes into all of the reports, but this platform makes it easy. And this year, one of the things that they highlighted is our efforts to make this regional. So we currently have a platform just for Hillsborough County. We're trying to expand it to include Citrus Hernando, Pasco, Polk, Pinellas, Sarasota, Manatee, and in the future, potentially link up all the way east to the Orlando metro area. So we're pretty proud of that. The second thing they highlighted was the Vision Zero Speed Management Action Plan, and this has been presented to you on a number of occasions. District 7 staff said that they were very proud that it's one of the first studies identifying countermeasures specifically for speed. It's also received a number of accolades, including the John W. Barr District Transportation Achievement Award. It was dubbed the 2020 Project of the Year by the Tampa Bay Institute of Transportation Engineers, or Tampa Bay ITE, and it was a finalist for Transportation Planning Project of the Year at Transplex. District 7 also highlighted our work on the Regional Long Range Transportation Plan. That was a monumental effort. So after we wrapped up the It's Time Hillsborough 2040 plan, we worked together with MPOs across 8 counties to produce a regional version of that, which included a lot more information on regional projects, basically a long-term vision of the future for the entire Tampa Bay region. And District 7 thought that that was an amazing accomplishment. And lastly, this pertains to the CAC. So if you remember last year around this time, we had staff work with you all to transform that I don't want to say manifesto, but it was kind of like a memo. That's the word I'm looking for, and turn that into a resolution on race equity. They were very proud of the fact that we were being responsive to all the things that were going on at the national level and bringing it into the MPO's planning process so that we can improve local efforts to make transportation more equitable and ensure equal access to all modes of transportation, regardless of race and other demographic characteristics. So that was all the great news that they mentioned. They mentioned a couple things that they would like us to improve upon. These aren't major dings. These are just things that could improve the already great work that we're doing. So the first thing that they said is we may need to evaluate the website for ADA compliance. Beginning about 2 years ago, there was a wave of lawsuits filed against local governments asking them to correct ADA compliance. So a lot of local governments didn't have documents accessible to folks under the ADA Act. And it's something that we're working on. We actually formed a working group to translate all of our documents and make them ADA accessible. We have a consultant on hand who can help guide that process. And we also have internal staff whose primary responsibility is to make sure that we're doing a good job here. They also asked us to archive all the old versions of the UPWP that are still on the website so that the public doesn't visit and see any outdated information. And lastly, they asked us to have any partially funded projects remain on the TIP priority list until they're fully completed. This is a move to demonstrate that even though these projects aren't complete, they still have the support of the community. And the district said that they would prefer to have them remain on that list. Lastly, there were no corrective actions, no surprise there. In their words, they said that we make their life very easy and that we're trendsetters in the planning world. The requested action from you all today is based on FDOT's finding that the MPO is in compliance with all federal and state laws, to support recertification of the MPO and authorize the MPO chair to sign the joint certification statement. And that's it for the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
He's off again.
You're off. You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, thank you very much. I was muted. We have a request to recommend to the MPO board approval of this certification. Are there questions from the committee or comments?
Amy.
Amy Espinoza, I'm sorry, I couldn't see you down there.
That's okay. Johnny, I just have a question. What is the name of your data analytics platform?
Johnny, are you there?
Sorry, I accidentally muted myself. I was going to say that over the duration of this project, we've gone through 2 different data portals. The first one was called ClearGuide. That's an Iteris product. Based on feedback from our partners, we discovered that they found it to be a little bit overwhelming. It was more oriented for engineers, and so there was a bit of a learning curve for planners. So this year we decided to go with Urban SDK. That's a platform that was built by planners. They have a number of clients across the state of Florida. They're very familiar with the needs of MPOs, specifically in this state. So we thought that that was a better option to move forward. And that's the one that we're hoping to regionalize.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Fernandez, did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Johnny. How you doing?
Morning, Rick. I'm doing well. How about you?
Good, good, good. Thanks for the report. And, you know, I love you, brother. So nothing I'm saying here is in any way critical of you or staff. I do have some concerns. I just want to raise them. Maybe you've got some response, maybe not, maybe a next meeting. The race equity resolution, which we worked on here, some more than others. I did very little other than vote for it. It's great work. But my question is, going forward, have we at the staff level or the board level developed any type of a plan, call it an action plan for next year and beyond, so that that resolution becomes more than just a piece of paper and actually becomes the foundation for maybe more notable achievements coming down the pike? And I have follow-up here. Go ahead, Johnny.
Rich or Beth might be able to give you a better idea of how we can materialize the work of the resolution. I'm familiar with some of the work that we've done very recently. Josh Barber and Dana Lazarus have been going around the county speaking with people. They're doing a storytelling. You'll have to forgive me, I'm not quite sure the terminology. I guess the best way to summarize it is they've been speaking to real people about some of the challenges that they've faced regarding planning and how they feel that both transportation and community planning has impacted their lives as minorities. Dana just recently wrapped up a coding effort to identify what the top reason or what the top challenges facing members of ethnic minorities are across the county. As far as how we plan on using that data, I'll defer to Beth and Rich at this point.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, Rich.
So if you're looking at the chat, you'll see Beth said what I was going to say, which is that we are working on an agency-wide non-discrimination plan update, and that is on your agenda for your next meeting in June. Now what that is, it actually covers more than the MPO. So it covers the Planning Commission as well as the River Board. But the emphasis is to really do a deep dive into the history of discriminatory planning in this county. There's been some very compelling research done and presented to various boards. I don't think you all have had the privilege yet of seeing that. Identifying, what's happened in the past has some very long influence and still influences development today. It also, as Johnny alluded to, has led us to do some very intensive community engagement. There was a storytelling forum that Dana, who by the way used to be a member of this committee, you probably remember her, organized, and some very powerful testimony from community advocates. So essentially the idea is to move forward, find out, what are the impacts that we're dealing with today? How are those still being manifested? What the community wants to do about them, and that's important. Not necessarily what planners or, technocrats think should be done. And then see if we can create an agenda or process and program to remedy some of those concerns moving forward.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Rich, do I understand you to say then that we are going to have that presentation from Dana and her findings next month?
That's correct.
Good.
Excellent.
Okay, good. Rick, did you have a follow-up question?
I do. I don't know if it's a comment or a question. I hope it's a question. We've had presentations, including Rich, some comments you just made in the course of just the last couple of meetings about the inequities manifest, racial inequities manifest through our transportation system. And we certainly tried to capture the essence of that, or at least the soul of it, in the race equity resolution. My concern is connecting the dots between what's on the paper and what we're being asked to do as a committee and the kinds of projects that we're being asked to approve or at least recommend. I mean, on the one hand, we're told that highways were used as a segregation tool, destroyed communities of color and concern. We're told that, and we're told it almost to the point of judicial notice if you were in a court of law. And in the same breath, we're asked to approve projects that are widening that very same interstate system, increasing capacity and increasing the burden on those communities of concern. And I mean, without putting too fine a point on it, at some point, you just have to acknowledge a certain level of hypocrisy in what we're saying and what we're doing. Is that DOT? Are they on board? Do they understand the importance of these studies and how important we think they are? So at some point, I hope we can bring those two things together, because frankly, the achievements aren't going to be too notable if we keep on increasing the problems. Right now, that's all we've been doing, despite efforts at this committee level. That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Amy Espinoza, do you have a question or comment?
I do have a comment, and I doubt this can be answered now, but hopefully it could be passed along to Dana and the work she's doing. But I guess my question to her would be, the interviews that she has been doing, are there any plans to make that part of the oral history project with the public library? The last presentation they did, I noted that a lot of the research was done in conjunction with the library, with their digital collection. And so that would, oops, sorry, appreciate it if that could be passed along and presented when she presents next month. Unless somebody knows the answer.
That's going to have to wait until next month because I don't know the answer to that question.
Seeing a couple of hands. Terrence, are you have your hand up?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes. That's not your record.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny, for the presentation. Let me ask, since we have the ADA recommendation for the website, you know, I've been asking about websites and improvements and apps last few years, I guess, or a couple of years or whatever. But is this a good opportunity? Can we leverage the consultant that you guys have to do like a complete overhaul, not just tackling the, you know, ADA compliance?
I don't know what the plans are for the website aside from making documents accessible. I know that we do have the W580 standard or 508. You'll have to forgive me. I'm not on the tech team and I'm not entirely sure of all the requirements, but I know that it's translatable into a lot of different languages. I do believe that it's at least some pages are accessible with a screen reader. As far as the extent or what the future plans are, I'll have to get back to you on that, talk to the tech team and get a little report from them because I'm not sure.
Mr.
All right,
Chair.
thank you.
Terrence, go ahead. You're recognized.
I'm
Rich,
good.
can you tell who's got their hand up? I can't see it very well.
Mr. Chair, that's David Bailey.
Oh, David, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Johnny, thank you for the presentation. With respect to the data analytics site, will that site, and I guess it's sort of related to Terrence's question, currently is that site connected to, I guess, the website for the public so that the public has access to some of that data? Or is that just a site used for your team to analyze information?
At this point, it's only for internal use, but we have a supplemental project that we're working on at this very moment to publish digital dashboards. So the public won't be able to access all of the features because there's restrictions about accessing certain raw data. Some of the companies that we acquire data from have a lot of restrictions in place, so we can't just open it up to everyone. But we plan on publishing digital dashboards so that you can see the data and you'll be able to understand what's going on in your community and really across the entire 8-county region. I'm hoping that we can have all of that complete. I would say sometime in the fall is a reasonable estimate to have all of that done.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Rich Clarendon, are you raising your hand or just, yes, did you recognize?
Thanks. I not relative to this subject that we're on the agenda, but we are getting a lot of feedback. So if you're not speaking, I would ask members to mute themselves. Anybody who's on the call, please mute yourself because we're getting some background noise.
Yeah, good. I noticed that. Thank you, Rich. Any other questions or comments? David?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had one more for Rich, and with respect to what he mentioned regarding the presentations that haven't been done, going along with Rick's question, is it possible to get, I guess, the presentations that you saw or that you had, Rich, done for you guys and I guess Dana's working on, is she taking the information from those presentations and putting a presentation together to give to us? Or my concern is I want to see some of those or want to hear some of the other presentations that were done regarding race and the impacts of race and the development and all that other stuff, the history of that on our county. And I just want to make sure that all of that will be covered in Dana's presentation in June.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a recap of everything that she and Joshua Barber have put together before and presented some of to other groups. So I think you're going to get the full gamut.
Good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Should be very interesting. Any other questions? Seeing none here in the room and no hands raised, do I have a motion to approve the recommendation and move it on to the MPO board?
Amy Espinosa will make.
Amy Espinosa has made the motion to approve and recommend to the MPO board. Is there a second?
David Bailey, second.
Second,
David
Rick
Bailey,
Richmond.
second. Gail, if you'd be kind enough to call the roll, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Absolutely. David Bailey,
Yes.
Carolyn Brown,
Yes.
Hoyt Prindle,
Yes.
Stephen Hollenkamp.
Yes.
Did Nicole Rice jump in? I don't see her. Alexis Boback,
Yes.
Christine Acosta, Christine.
Yes. Yes.
Let's see here. Bill Roberts,
Yes.
Nicholas Glover,
Yes.
Don Skelton,
Yes.
Jeff Lucas,
Yes.
Beatrice Zafra,
Yes.
Cliff Rice,
Yes.
Eric Lamb,
Yes.
Ricardo Fernandez,
Yes.
Terrence Trott,
Yes.
Amy Espinoza,
Yes.
Rick Richmond,
Yes.
and the motion carries 17-0.
All right. Thank you very much, committee members. The next item on our agenda is the public participation plan amendment. Davita Franklin, are you going to make this presentation, please?
Yes, good morning. This is Davita Franklin, presenting to you the amendment to the public participation plan. Just to give you some background, the Metropolitan Planning Organization has a public participation plan, or PPP, that describes its engagement strategies to inform the public about transportation. And this includes the long-range transportation plan, the Transportation Improvement Plan, or TIP, and amendments to these documents. Now, for TIP amendments, the review and comment period coincides with formal presentations made to advisory committees as an action item on the agenda before the MPO board's consideration. And this includes posting on our website at least 2 weeks before the MPO's meeting. But this year, the MPO changed its meeting schedule, which shortens the amount of time between its meeting and the preceding committees. Therefore, the minimum public review and comment period on TIP amendments needs to change from 21 days to 14 days. And to support this amendment, our public engagement team did place an ad in the Tampa Bay Times that ran on Sunday, April 25th, and we are placing a post on our social media pages on Friday, May 7th. Our recommended action is to approve the proposed amendments to the public participation plan. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. This item was included in your packet with the changes highlighted. I only have one question of Davita, and that is, I'm assuming that this is an amendment that is not simply a one-time occurrence, but would carry forward in future years. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, unless there are other changes to the board schedule that would then affect the time frame that we have for the preceding meetings again.
Okay, thank you. Are there
You're
questions
welcome.
from the committee? Mr. Fernandez is recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Davita, good morning.
Good
I
morning.
don't think I see you on the array of postage stamps on my screen here. You're just a disembodied voice, which is a little disconcerting. But in any event, I'll just trust you're there.
Thank you.
I have a question about the amendment process. Reflective of the fact that I apparently have no personal life, I went through the agendas going back a year for this committee. In August, September, November of 2020, and in January, February, March, no, not March, April, and today, May. In at each one of those meetings, there was a request for a tip amendment. In one of those meetings, I think there were 3 amendments requested. My concern is that we seem to be relying a great deal on the tip amendment process. And when you reduce the window of time available for people to review and communicate with authority as to what it is they feel about various amendments, you're reducing the amount of public participation that's available. Not all of us are nerdy enough to follow this process on a regular basis. A few pay attention when you're coming up to June, when the tip review, the big hearing, is being done. But all of these incremental changes that occur during the course of the year, and they're frequent, can have a very dramatic impact on people's lives. Even today, we're being asked to do a tip amendment that involves the acquisition of 7 parcels in Ybor, over $2 million worth of right-of-way acquisitions. I doubt there are too many people in Ybor that know that's happening. So I'm not exactly sure what the approach is to that, other than, you know, on the one hand, I think maybe it would be better if we stopped using these incremental tip amendments as such a regular process of business. And if we can't do that, then I have a problem with reducing the amount of time people have available to comment and review. I probably will not vote for this for that reason. I don't know if you have any comments on that. I'd be certainly happy to hear them.
Davita, comments?
I definitely can appreciate your concern, Mr. Fernandez. Now, some of the background of this is also that the Board of County Commissioners had changed their meeting schedule, which then affected the MPO board's meeting schedule. For any additional information, though, I would have to defer to Rich or Beth to maybe give some more clarity on that, or perhaps even maybe consider some recommendations that we could take a look at.
Rich, do you care to comment further?
Yeah, first of all, somebody who's identified as calling in on a phone needs to mute themselves, because that's where we're getting a lot of the crosstalk from.
Yes.
So please do that for the benefit of everybody else. I'm still hearing it. Well, I will try to make myself heard. So we have no control necessarily over the number of tip amendments that come forward. And, you know, we try to maximize the amount of public notice that we give. So these are minimum requirements for public notice. If we can give more notice, we will. That's number one. Number two, you know, this was triggered because the MPO moved its meeting date. And that was triggered because the Board of County Commissioners had 3 meetings, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, back to back to back, one of which was the MPO. They used to meet on the first Tuesday, if you remember. and they were finding that difficult. So, I mean, that's sort of was the first domino that triggered this. And if we go back to a different schedule, as Davida said, you know, this could change. So I guess that would be my first response.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Christine Acosta, you're recognized.
Thank you. I certainly have compassion for all the people giving their time and trying to work out the myriad of complex schedules to do the work that is necessary in our community. But I don't think that the changes should result in the shortchanging to the public in the time frame. It's hard enough to bring news out into the community about what's being listed on the tip, let alone you know, give people time to process, absorb, and formulate, you know, feedback. So I just I'm not comfortable with a 14-day window, and I realize that that is a domino backwards of everything else that will fall. But I'm not comfortable with the 14-day window for the public comment.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from persons on the phone?
Mr. Chair, this is Terrence.
Terrence, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. Thank you. So yes, shortening the time seems like it's doing a disservice to the public. So this is kind of why, like, I keep harping on the website and the app. If there was a change and we had an app in hand, maybe everybody who has the app gets a blast that there's a new amendment for review. That changes this conversation. It makes a lot of admin things easier. So from a foundational perspective, I would just use the desire to change this time to further support the need for improving communication. That's all, but I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Good comment. Anyone else on the virtual meeting have a comment? I see no other hands here in the room. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the recommendation to amend the tip approval process. Is someone care to make that motion? Do I hear a motion for approval? Or a motion otherwise? This is an action item. We're being asked to take a position on the recommendation by staff to change the public notice period from 21 to 14 days.
I would make a motion to, and I don't know if I'm going to phrase this right, but to provide a little bit more clarity as to what can be done. I mean, we understand that, you know, the meeting schedule will affect this, but I think many of us agree that shortening the public comment time is not desirable. So if we can make a motion to defer until we get a better understanding of what possibilities there are, you know, alternative means to give more public comment. That's the motion I would like to make, maybe.
Okay, Ms. Espinola, if I can rephrase that into a motion to table any action, if that's acceptable, I will seek a second for that motion. Is there a second to table?
I'll second.
Mr.
Yeah,
Hollenkamp, second.
I'll second too.
Is there any
Yep.
further discussion?
Chair, this is Rick, if I may. And I echo the comments here, and Rick, this is Rich, sorry, this is a little bit towards you. I'd like to better understand what can and can't be done under a tip amendment, and you know, meaning substantial change, or what kind of change elevates it to something different. And maybe we can gain a little bit more comfort under shortening the duration, but I too have concerns with shortening it to 14 days. It's sometimes it takes us a week just to have the option to be able to look at the material, read it, and then additional time to research it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Rich Clarendon.
Yeah, so TIP, Transportation Improvement Program amendment is triggered when either a new project comes forward with funding to include in the 5-year TIP, or there's a significant change to the scope of the project or the cost of the project that would require new funding, or maybe a reduction in funding, perhaps. But normally, it's when a project that may already be in the TIP has a significant change, or a new project is introduced.
Thank you for that clarification. Yep. Any other questions or comments on the motion? We have a motion to table a recommendation. Rick Fernandez, yes.
Did we get a second on that?
Yes, we did. Stephen Hollenkamp seconded.
So we're in discussion. All right.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with tabling it. The problem I have is, I'm sorry, I'm challenged. Okay. There. I don't have a problem with the tabling. I have a problem with whether or not that action in and of itself will communicate the concerns of the committee. I know you as chair, when you make your presentation, you do an exceptional job of doing that. And I trust that you will here. But I wonder if there might be some way to formalize that in our committee report to let them know the reason that we're tabling it is because the sense of the committee is that this amendment is not one that we wish to support. It isn't just that we're not interested, we are interested, but in the negative. At least I am.
Certainly, fair request. Christina Costa is recognized.
I would like to make a different motion. I don't know if we can do that without having voted on the other one yet, but I'd like to make a motion that we decline.
Christine, if I may,
yeah.
Under discussion of this motion, if you'd like to explain that you would like to make a subsequent motion if this one, let's take action on this motion first. So let's hear your explanation before we entertain a second motion.
Well, I think that this by using the word table implies a postponement versus a objection. So after we go through the process of the motion that's been made, if it's appropriate and the opportunity still exists, I'll make a subsequent motion that we decline to advance to approve this change.
Point of order.
All right, and yes, someone raised a point of order, David or Nicholas.
Yes, I was just going to say if Amy, you'd be willing to accept a friendly amendment to accommodate sort of the spirit of what the other speakers have suggested, that would kind of solve the timing issue.
I would be willing to entertain it. However, I understand that the Planning Commission's scheduling is a factor here. So I think that we should allow the opportunity for an alternate means that satisfies our concerns plus their need to reschedule their meetings. Does that make sense? I don't know. I mean, that was my motion, was to table it and understand what else can be done.
Thank you, Amy. But I think the committee has the ability to make an amendment, to offer an amendment, and either Christine or Nicholas, you're free to do that if you care to amend the motion in some fashion. I'm sorry, Rich Clarendon, you want to clarify where we are?
Yeah, I think we're in a morass, but I would say this: certainly you can make an amendment to the motion that would have to be voted on first, and then go back to the main motion. But I would also just mention that we normally get more than weeks notice when a TIP amendment comes forward from DOT. I mean, I think we can work with them to see if there is a way that they can get us the information. It doesn't necessarily have to show up first in your agenda package. I mean, that's how we normally, when we normally post notices of tip amendments is when they go out in an agenda package, but those don't have to be coupled together. So if we can get things earlier, we can put them up on the website, perhaps, and maybe satisfy your need to, provide ample time for people to understand, that there is an amendment pending and maybe dig into it if they want to. It's just that occasionally it's less. I mean, it's occasionally it can be less than 21 days, which was the previous time frame. So I guess, if you want to make a motion to table the motion or the action until such time as we get further clarification, that's certainly doable. And that would be reflected, passed on to the MPO. In the meantime, we can see what we can work out with DOT.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Terrence Trott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to see if there was an opportunity for nuance in this at all. So there's several different types of tip amendments, I guess. Could there be like for the new additions, brand new projects, we keep the 21 days, and for other changes to existing approved projects, that can be the 14-day minimum?
I'm not qualified to answer that question, either Rich or Davida. I think that'd be an opinion. So at the moment, we have a motion on the floor with a second to table any action. We can vote on that, recognizing the comments that Rich Clarendon made about the process, or I'll entertain an amendment. Seeing no hands, if there's no further discussion, I'll ask Gail to do a roll call vote on the motion to table any action on the recommendation. Gail?
Absolutely. David Bailey?
David is having trouble being heard. Maybe you can indicate in the chat box whether he's in favor of the motion or not.
He gave a thumbs up on the screen.
Okay.
Carolyn
Now
Brown?
I'm unmuted. Thank you.
Yay.
Hoyt Prindle?
Yes.
Steve Hollenkamp?
Yes.
Nicole Rice? Alexis Bobak? Yeah,
Okay.
Nicole?
Okay, sorry, I'm having endless. This program does not do well on my computer. This is in regard to the motion to table it.
Correct.
Is that correct? Versus voting on the no. Thank you.
Alexis Bobak?
Yes.
Christina Costa?
No.
Artie Fryer or Nancy Castellano? I don't think they've come in. Bill Roberts?
No.
Nicholas Glover?
Yes.
Don Skelton?
No.
Jeff Lucas?
Yes.
Beatrice Zafra?
Yes.
Cliff Rice?
Approved. Yes.
Eric Lamb? Ricardo Fernandez?
No.
Terrence Trott?
Yes.
Amy Espinoza,
Yes.
Rick Richmond,
Yes.
and the motion carries 12-5.
All right, so we have moved to table that action item. Thank you very much, Davida, for bringing this presentation to our committee. We'll now move on to the status reports. The first item on our status report is a TIP draft. Dr. Wong, you're up again.
I think we skipped one of the action items.
Yeah, the tip amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. We have an action item with the tip amendment, which is the downtown interchange. And Vishaka, are you going to make that presentation for us?
Yes, I can make it. Rich, can you make me a presenter?
Yes, I think I can, unless Michael is still with us. Okay, let me see if I can do this.
Okay, can you all see my screen now?
There you go.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, committee. Today I'm going to be presenting, this is Vishaka Shivraman for the records, and I'm going to be presenting the tip amendment, which we were just discussing about for the downtown interchange. And this is for the section 6 of DTI. Just to give you a quick background about the project, this is an amendment for the right-of-way phase to purchase the 7 parcels. I will show the map in a few seconds. And this is to show, like I mentioned, this is the section 6 of downtown interchange. The total funding allocated for this project is about 2.5 million. Just to let you know a little bit background about this project, this was one of the preferred alternatives that came out of the 2019 MetroQuest survey. And this was identified as a quick fix solution, which was adopted into the 2045 long range transportation plan. This is a map that FDOT has provided. It is for the operational improvements. You can see that the 3 turning movements here, if you may. One is for the westbound to northbound, one is for the southbound to eastbound, and the yellow line is for the westbound to southbound. So these are the 3 movements which will be part of this project. I'm not going into the design details. This is only to show you that this is the interchange, and the parcels you can see on the map in the Ybor City north of I-4 are the ones identified in pink color. So this is again a map of the interchange. This is a trail alignment portion of it as provided by FDOT. I would just let you know that this is a very high resolution image. So, and it might have too many elements in it, but I would just like to show you this concept where you can see the parcels here identified in the yellow color. These are still potential concept plans. These are not final design guide. These are not final design concepts. So I just wanted to show you again the perspective with respect to the interstate. This is a page from the 2045 adopted LRTP, where it shows that this project was identified part of the downtown operational improvements, and it was identified as a cost feasible project for 2045. Sorry, I'm having some feedback. This is also the section showing the amount which is potentially for the project for the different phases, including design, right-of-way, and cost and construction. So this is what I mentioned earlier in one of my slides. This is a page from the Time Hillsborough survey, where you can see that out of the 4 scenarios identified here, the no build, express lane, safety fix, and the full rebuild, this was this was the project which received the most higher star rating overall. This is why I said that this was the most highly adopted, more highly preferred alternative, and which was adopted into the long-range transportation plan based on the survey results. This is the survey results shown by zip codes, and you can see that the yellow color, kind of the high star rating, is all for this project in the downtown area. So it means that the people in this zip code supported this project more than the other concepts. This is another graphic, also part of the MetroQuest survey results. It shows that this safety quick fix had more people preferring more high 3, 4, and 5 stars compared to the other projects. The no build had the least preference. The meaning people who voted 1 had the highest number, and full build option had very biased opinion. So this project was identified as one which had the most 5-star ratings. This is the section that shows the comparative report. You can see here where the funds are going, and this is for year 2021. Again, I would like to mention that this is only to purchase the right-of-way funds for this project, and the design concept is not finalized yet. So this is what it shows for 2021 for the 2.54 million. With this, I would like to request if you can approve the TIP amendment and recommend it to the board for approval.
All right. Thank you very much. Are there questions of the presenter or questions about the proposed TIP amendment? We're being asked to recommend this to the MPO board for approval. Mr. Fernandez.
All right. I am unmuted this time. Okay. Hi. Had a lot of questions written down here last night. I'm trying to get myself organized. First of all, the addition of BRT ramps, that's a new one to me. And I don't see anything on the chart or the map that DOT presented, which I think was page 16 of the PDF doc, that reflects where those BRT ramps are supposed to be, or for that matter, what BRT we're talking about. Can you add some color to that narrative?
I think this is the page you're talking about. I can defer this question to the FDOT representative at this time.
Yeah, hi, everybody. It's Craig Fox, Florida Department of Transportation. This TIP amendment was actually for just the operational improvements, mainly the westbound and northbound one for those right of way. So there is BRT ramps proposed as part of another upcoming project, but it wasn't necessarily to be included, and it's not really impacting the right of way that's proposed in this TIP amendment.
Well, I mean, that may be, but those words appear on the document that we're being asked to judge and take a vote on. If it doesn't belong there, then it should be stricken. And I certainly won't vote for it with those words there. So do I understand that this is an error in the document that was presented to us? Well, that is what I understand. Do I understand correctly?
Yeah, I don't believe it's necessarily an error in the document, but what it is just that's not one of the projects that's actually going to be done by separate projects. It's not going to be done by one of the 3 operational improvements projects that's proposed.
All right. Well, I would ask
downtown interchange ones, and then there's also section 7 and section 7, which is further north. And what we're just discussing today was just based on the downtown interchange one. So that's showing from just a different segment of the Tampa Bay Next downtown interchange operational improvements.
All right. So what is being requested now is roughly $2.5 million to acquire 7 parcels of right of way. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That's it. Okay. Not that that's not enough, but that's what this is about. All right. May I continue, Chair? Okay, thanks. On the 5-year TIP document, page 17 of the PDF doc, I probably should know this by now, but could you please explain the initials that appear in the first column, DS, DIH, and DDR? I've missed those somehow.
I have them here for you.
You have
these
them
are
here
the funding codes. I believe you can still see my screen. DS is state primary funds for highways and PTO. DIH is state in-house product support, and DDR is district dedicated revenue. These are just 3 funding sources. So that's how the tip shows that how the amount is split among the different fund sources.
Okay, that note on your PDF presentation doesn't appear on my document for some reason. So I still don't know what that means, but at least I see what the initials stand for. I guess I can look them up. All right, thank you for that. Up at the near the top of the page 17 doc, it says amendment number 21. What does that refer to?
Those are just a record that we have to keep. It's in the database and the amendments follow chronological order. So it's only for internal, this is just for the database purposes that we will know these are the number of amendments that have been processed since this tip was adopted back in June. That's
all right,
just
so does that mean that there are 20 other amendments before this one that were made to the tip?
Yes, including the ones we start from roll forward in September. So, and this includes all the new projects and which are the ones which have been amended.
All right. If I understand the geography here properly, the parcels that are being targeted for acquisition are in the community of VM Ybor. Is that correct?
Yes. Craig, you want to answer? Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. They're in VM Ybor. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Could you explain, please, what process of public outreach has been conducted with the VM Ybor community? With whom have you spoken, and what input have they given you?
Yes, so we've done some previous small group meetings with the communities. I can get you I can follow up with a more detailed list about, you know, all the contacts that we've had. We've also done walking tours around the area, and we also have some proposed further coordination coming up later on in this year as we start to finalize the designs.
Well, have they been presented with this tip amendment and asked to vote yay or nay as to whether or not they support it?
Yeah, it was all part of the Tampa Interstate Study supplemental, the SEIS, the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement. So there was, you know, public hearings and coordination based on that, but we do not, that it's not, the department doesn't really go out and request votes from communities in order to get a tip amendment.
All right, well, my concern is that the DOT has been suggesting for some period of time, including, I might add, on the very document that Johnny Wong is going to present to us next, that additional right-of-way acquisition would not be necessary for these downtown interchange operational improvements. So this is a significant change from what has been out on the wires now for years, literally.
That's not exactly accurate. What we've been stating is that because before in some of the more extensive reconstructions, I think it was around like 200 parcels were to be impacted, and what we've stated that it's going to be less than 10 were going to be impacted. So this still is within that range.
Okay, well, I'm looking at table 2, item 57 of the Johnny Wong presentation. And let's see, where are the words? FDOT is currently refining concept designs, and at this point believe all 3 options are feasible without the acquisition of additional right of way. And one of the options there includes the addition of a lane from I-4 westbound to I-75 northbound. So this represents a material change from what's in the document we're being asked to review later today and what presumably we're going to vote on next month.
Yes, I'm sorry, I don't have that document that you're referring to right in front of me, or if I do, I'm just not sure where it is on that page. But one thing we have been pretty consistent in that we had at the public hearings and through our coordination is that there would be less than 10 parcels impacted by this change. But I mean, not by the change, I'm sorry, but by the change from by the move because we had the options A, B, C, and D, and by switching to operational improvements, we consistently stated that it was going to be less than 10 parcels would be impacted.
Okay,
So
I have just one last
Josh,
question.
it says it in that document.
One last question.
Yes, sir.
Sir, could you tell us what these parcels are? By that I mean, are they residential? Are they business? Are they occupied, unoccupied? Are they vacant land? And if you have it, what price point have you applied to each parcel?
Some of the
Can you
parcels are
show us the
vacant.
map again?
Sure,
Can we see the map while we're talking through this? Thank you.
Yeah, I will do that.
Yeah, there are some of the
Thank you.
parcels are vacant. Some of the parcels do have existing structures on with occupants at the time. I don't know the exact right away cost estimate for the the individual parcels in front of me at the moment, but they are all residential parcels, or either residential parcels or vacant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, 6 structures and 1's vacant.
I think it might be helpful if you can answer whether or not all of these parcels are under contract to be purchased, or if they are simply expected to be purchased. What is the status of the purchase?
Yeah, they're not under contract to be purchased by the department as of yet. Of course, being that that's part kind of why we come for the TIP amendment is to get the funds to move forward with right-of-way acquisition. At the same time, we do have to get clearance for FHWA to complete any right-of-way purchase. Right now, we're not under contract. We're still, we're still working through our designs. We're through finalizing designs.
So what you're really asking for is approval of the amendment to provide the funding in the event you can purchase these parcels at the total aggregate price. Is that fair?
Yes, yes, that's fair. And of course, each parcel that the department seeks to acquire undergoes its own right-of-way negotiation. So, the price is even the estimated price isn't often the final price because it gets negotiated.
Okay. Further questions from the committee on the presentation? Christina Costa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I want to make sure I understand that these parcels are not under contract yet, and this part of the approval process is so that the funds can be set aside in order to approach the property owners. Will the property owners have the ability to, is there like an eminent domain process that will these property owners have to acquiesce, or will they have a choice? We don't know which ones are occupied. We don't know what type of structures they are. To Mr. Fernandez's point earlier, the history of highways is one where people are kicked out and disenfranchised from their property. So I'm not clear here on what's going to happen if we approve these funds and then someone is approaching property owners. What happens then? Can they say, no, we don't want to sell, we don't want to move?
Yeah, they could certainly refuse that. There is eminent domain that is an option the department can use, but that is something that, of course, we try to stay as far away from as possible. What we try to do is, enter into good faith negotiations and discuss with the property owner. See, so sometimes property owners can choose to can choose to stay, or sometimes they can choose to relocate within the area or outside of the area. The Florida has some pretty strong property owner and relocation laws, so we definitely do compensate them for their efforts and help them out with any kind of relocation assistance. And we can have some folks could come and just discuss the right-of-way process more in depth, but it's certainly not a just, okay, we're the bullies, push you out. We do work with the communities and make sure that whatever properties if they are relocated, it's a decent, safe, and sanitary property they're relocated to.
Thank you. May I ask a follow-up? Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. It's my understanding, and I've had the benefit of studying this space in detail, both by walking it and biking all around. And I express gratitude to the MPO staff who kind of palled around with me around there. As I understand it, the space to the south here, where you see a little sort of slip lane that blends with the blue there eastbound, is intended to be sort of a very neighborhoody type of roadway. And if I understand correctly, the property that is to the south of that is, I believe, city-owned land and developable. So I think it's reasonable to expect that any business owner or a resident that might be displaced be given first right of refusal on sort of just moving their property or relocating the business to the southern part of this image, you know, just from above the pink line to below the blue line. If I understand that space correctly, I think keeping those individuals and businesses in the community is very important.
Yeah, as far as the area below the blue line, the department has acquired the right of way necessary for the improvements. But if as far as what we do with remainder parcels, that's only up to further coordination with local entities and the public.
Okay, but I think Ms. Acosta's point was to offer some sort of coordination to relocate those people if they should want to move south of the blue line. So
I see what you're saying.
didn't
Correct.
exactly answer the question.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nicole Rice,
Yes,
you're
you're trying to work with
recognized.
homeowners so that they can relocate to where they ideally would want to relocate to. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you.
Nicole Rice.
I just wanted to there's a couple things going on here and a few concerns in regards to what we're being asked to do today. Regardless of whether or not this is something down the road that becomes a valid need. To the presenter, are you even able to tell us, we're asking you specific questions in regards to these parcels and we're not getting answers. This is a community of concern. We spent a lot of time and energy on this committee putting together a entire resolution on making sure that we protect certain communities of concern, and yet we cannot speak to these. Could you clarify some of the impact here? Also, what I'm hearing is there's a lot of there's like 2 or 3 issues here. I want to make a motion, so I'd like to actually yield right now. I see a few other people who have questions. I have some I think this is an actual violation of some of the resolution that we just approved, that was drafted. But you need a basic who, what, where, when, how, why. And right now, everything is missing from this. As a matter of fact, there's actually language in here referring to BRT, but that's a mistake. So I'm not sure why we're trying to slip this in at this moment. So I'm actually going to yield because I saw there was a few other people that had prior questions before any motions are made.
Thank you, Nikki. I'll be happy to come back to you for a motion.
I'm just kind of right now.
Other hands up. Rich, can you help me out here?
I see Eric Lamb. I think he's had his hand up for a
Oh,
while.
yes, Eric. Please go ahead. You're recognized. But you're on mute. And Alexis, I'll get to you in a moment.
Thank you. Someone unmuted me here. Thank you. Craig, this question is primarily for you. Upon purchasing these properties, will the city lose tax revenues for those parcels, and approximately how much, and who will be picking up the tab for this lost revenue for the city?
Yeah, I don't have as far as a figure of tax revenue that the city would be impacted by these parcels transferring to public parcels. But one thing that we did propose that's included in the next slide is the is a the wide walk and trail system that we're incorporating into the project. One thing that we're also looking at doing is increasing is just the aesthetics of the overall area. What exactly those are, we're still working with the city to determine that. But as far as whatever impacts the tax revenue, I just don't have that information available. But we can get that to you so desired.
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
I'll make a note of that.
Thank you, Eric. Alexis, you're recognized.
Thank you. I know these projects have been discussed for quite a bit of time. I'm sort of new to the board. So I'm wondering if you could, piggybacking off of what Nikki was saying, could you give us some kind of a why this particular project is important? Is there some safety issues that you could discuss? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and if you go to the slide just above this one, I believe that's number 3. I can get the description of it. Yeah, kind of how we came to this point. As Rashaka stated earlier in her presentation, with the results of that survey, there were a couple options proposed before. Those are options A, B, C, and D. All involved, with A and B involved the full interchange reconstruction. And options C and D involved involved lesser impacts, which included all those options included express lanes. But through further coordination with the community, the department made the decision twofold. Was one, to pull express lanes from the downtown interchange, and also it was to cut back on the design so we can have the as few impacts as possible. So I believe option A had somewhere upwards of a little over 200 parcel impacts, and since then we've switched to these operational improvements, which reduce the and when I say impacts, I mean parcel impacts. Since then we've switched to these operational improvements, which reduce the right-of-way impacts to less than 10 parcels. So just a quick high level overview, and again we're just updating our concepts and our exhibits for public consumption, so we'll be able to come out with those in the next upcoming months. We just don't have them ready for public consumption just as yet, but just a quick overview of they are operational and safety improvements that we're considering. So with the project in blue, what that's going to do on the southbound 275 to eastbound I-4 ramp, we are going to add an additional lane to that ramp by widening the existing structure. This, as I'm pretty sure we're all aware of, causes significant backups in both the AM and PM periods, weekdays, weekends, just because of lack of capacity on the system interchange. And by system I mean 275 going to I-4. It's because it's only a single lane that involves that incurs significant backups on southbound 275. The other project, the westbound I-4 to northbound I-275, that project will widen that exit ramp from westbound I-4 to northbound 275 from 1 lane to 2 lanes, again relieving some of the congestion and bottlenecking that we're getting that you receive on westbound I-4. For the third and final on the operational improvements, the westbound I-4 to southbound 275, that will add an additional lane. Right now, if you go on westbound I-4 to southbound I-275, it narrows down to 2 lanes, and this also contributes to significant backups within the downtown interchange. This will not only add a single lane, but it will also create shoulders right now where there are none. So right now, if you're on that westbound I-4 to southbound 275, making that movement, and you break down, then you're stuck right there in a travel lane. So it's extremely it's not as safe if somebody does break down there. In addition to that, it does a situation like that can lead to more likely to have secondary crashes, which are a definite problem also. So this would provide an additional lane to relieve the bottleneck, so we don't have traffic that's jammed up in the interchange, while adding shoulders to provide for safety measures when folks break down. So that's kind of just a quick run through of the overall project. And in addition, in this interchange, we have around 1,000 crashes per year that we're trying to address by having the least amount of right-of-way impacts as possible. So we're adding not necessarily, so we're adding a little capacity here and there to relieve some of the backups, but it's not going as extensive as it was before. With a full interchange reconstruction, we're impacting far more parcels with far more residential and business relocations. In
Thank
addition
you
to
for
that, we
clarifying.
also are trying to provide also the trail network also to provide a buffer to the communities and also provide more multimodal options without going with a full interchange reconstruction and have more impacts.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions from committee members? Let me see. Hoyt Pringle, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, just on a separate note, I was here a little late, but welcome Nick Glover to our committee. He's going to be a great addition. Just wanted to get that in so I didn't get a chance to say hello to him. Craig, appreciate all the time you're taking to answer these questions. I have a couple of them. The first is, has there been an assessment on the loss of tax revenue to the city and county from the proposed properties that are scheduled to be bought as part of this project?
Yeah. That question actually came before. Yeah, I'd have to look into that and get that information. I believe we did do a socioeconomic analysis, but I'm not sure if it did display the actual tax parcel value. So I can look into that and we can get back to you all with that.
All right. Well, and I guess as part of that question, not just the actual properties to be purchased, but also the surrounding properties. Will there be an analysis of the diminution in value from the expansion of the freeway there?
Yeah, we did do an analysis. I'd have to just pull that report and actually that with you all. I'm sorry, I just don't have that information just readily available in front of me right now.
Okay, that's fine. I apologize if that came up earlier. I didn't hear it.
No problem.
The next question I had was for the safety option when FDOT is going out and pitching this to the communities. If you wouldn't mind putting that map back up with the four different, the blue and yellow of each. You know what people say they want and what they don't want from the four different options.
Oh, from the survey.
Yeah.
This one, right?
Yes, thank you. So my question is for the safety and traffic quick fix option, are people being told that as part of this option there will be properties purchased and homes demolished?
Answer that.
Yes, I'm not sure if Rashad can answer that because this was done by the MPO. Or sorry, Rich, did you say?
Yeah. So for the committee's benefit, this goes back to 2019 when we did a countywide survey regarding what should go into the long-range plan. These are 4 different options, starting with no build. The one that was called safety and traffic quick fix was the one that would have the least impact on right of way.
I guess what I'm asking is, are people being affirmatively told that there will be additional property purchases and home demolitions as part of that project? Or are they just being told it will be the least impactful to adding right away? I guess I'm just curious how that's pitched.
Yeah. So
yeah. Oh.
Sorry. This goes back to this one particular survey, and I don't remember that they were told there would be no impact, but I think we said this would be minimal impact. Craig can probably elaborate on what's happened since then. I think it's last time I think this came before the committee, it was represented that the right-of-way impact would be less than 10 parcels.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. So the study shown here was one that was done by the MPO, and at the same time or around the similar time frame, the department was also going forward with this SEIS process, where we engage with the communities, engage with the MPOs and local governments about the 4 different options and also the options for the operation improvements also. So during that process, yes, we did make it known to the public that there will still be some right-of-way impacts, but we also did make it clear that it would be far less than the full rebuild.
Okay, I guess what's surprising to me is just kind of knowing, you know, folks who live in that area around the interchange and interacting with a lot of people in Seminole Heights and Tampa Heights and Ybor, that I'm just shocked that saying that there would be additional right-of-way taken would actually receive a positive enough score to get those being yeses in that vicinity. And so that's kind of why I was curious as to what the specific you know, pitch was on that, because that kind of informs to me, you know, the true standing of the community, if you will. Because if you just say, okay, yeah, there's a little additional right of way, I don't think that really equates with people in the community. But if you're saying, okay, additional properties can be purchased and homes demolished, I think that rings true a little bit differently. I guess I had some other questions related to these maps, but I'll just defer that for a later time, since it doesn't necessarily seem to be entirely germane to the focus of our discussion. So I'll yield the floor back. Thank you.
Thank you, Hart. Terrence Trott, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. You know, man, this is one of those things that it's like, you know, you don't want to sound insensitive, right? It's 7 homes, but I do recall through the process of determining, you know, which one the community wanted and the different alternatives, that there were, you know, the other alternatives were like hundreds of homes, potentially, or sites. That's not to say that 7 is, you know, acceptable or anything like that, but that was the number, I guess, that's determined based off of the work that was agreed that needed to be done to make the area better. So I just wanted to provide those comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Terrence. David Bailey, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that those 7 properties, they're residential properties. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. 6 of them, sorry. Yes, sir. 6 of them do have structures on them, and the 7th one is a vacant parcel.
Okay, out of the
And
6
they're all
that have,
residential, that's correct.
and they are occupied?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Other
This is Beth
questions?
Alden. I pulled up our presentation showing the 4 options for the downtown interchange when we were doing this survey. Would you like me to share my screen and show you how they were described?
I think that would be helpful, Beth. Thank you.
Sure, just a sec.
And Alexis, I think this may help you get a better understanding of how all this fits together, if it does.
Okay. So I'm not sure if you can see my presentation slides.
Yeah,
You
we can see it.
can see it?
We see
Yes, ma'am.
option 1.
Option 1, no build. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. So the first option, no build. So we were trying to summarize very succinctly in an online format that people could respond to the survey on their phones, some of the different characteristics of the 4 options. So for all of them, we were talking about crashes, about travel time, about impacts on homes and businesses, and the overall cost for the project. So the no build option was described as further construction, airport to Ybor in 15 to 30 minutes, airport to the MLK interchange in 10 to 30 minutes. That reflects travel time variability. And 0 impact on homes and businesses, construction cost of 0. Option 2, the safety traffic quick fix. So described as we're just fixing the I-275 ramps to and from I-4, just adds ramp lanes, does not add through lanes, reduces severe crashes. And so we did describe in here impact 0 homes and businesses because that was what we understood at the time. Construction costs less than 200 million. Option 3, so this was the express lane flyover, 4 new express lanes east-west, 0 new lanes going north. So east-west means on I-4 and on I-275 west of downtown Tampa. The rest of the existing lanes stay the same. Connects the I-4 express lanes to the airport, reduces severe crashes, can get from the airport to the Ybor City exit, that's the 22nd Street exit, in 11 minutes in the express lanes. Impacts about 75 homes and businesses. Construction costs more than 700 million. And then option 4 was the full rebuild. So that widens and adds more lanes, includes 4 east-west express lanes, creates an east-west corridor for transit, reduces the most severe crashes, can get from the airport to the MLK exit in 9 minutes in the express lanes, impacts about 220 homes and businesses. The construction costs more than $1 billion. And so we distributed this in presentations to community groups on our website. The most responses were actually responded to through the MetroQuest page link from our website. We did also provide the opportunity when we did presentations to community groups that people could provide their options on the spot, and those were all tallied together. So I think what you saw in Vishaka's slides was that the no build option had the most unfavorable ratings by far. The full rebuild, you either loved it or you hated it. There were a lot of 1-star ratings and a lot of 5-star ratings and not a lot in the middle. Option 2 and option 3 were more balanced, and option 2 had the most positive ratings overall, including favorable ratings from the zip codes next to the downtown interchange. And so ultimately that was our recommendation for the long range transportation plan, and it was approved at a public hearing in 2019, where we actually did not get a lot of negative feedback at the public hearing. And so this TIP amendment that you're considering today is to implement this concept.
Yeah,
Could you go back to the
one thing I just wanted to,
Which one? 2?
Option 2,
Option 2, the one that was approved.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to add, I wasn't aware that this slide said the zeros, homes, and businesses, but I would like to send you guys also the link to the public hearings that we had in relation to the SCIS, which was outreach that the department was doing, and you can, I can forward you guys that link, and you can see the boards that we had up on the scrapbook of comments and the different boards we had visible at the events. But we did have those impacts shown during the SCIS.
Yeah, that's correct. We did get information in 2020. I think that's when that hearing was, right, Craig? In 2020.
Yeah, the date was the date was May 21st, 2019, and May 23rd, 2019. I'm sorry. Yes, we did have one early 2020. You're right.
Thank you, Beth. I think that's helpful. If you could leave that up for just a moment. Craig, let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
We're considering approval for the purchase of 7 parcels today. Is it DOT's opinion that this is all of the property that will need to be acquired to implement option number 2? Are there
Yes,
any
sir.
future acquisitions?
No, sir. No future acquisitions are proposed at this point. We're pretty set on a number of design items, and we are certain that this is all that will be needed.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the committee? Anyone here in the room?
Looks like Hoyt has a question.
I'm sorry, Hoyt. Go ahead. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up briefly, I know this isn't the MPO staff's fault because they're not in control of who purchases the properties or when properties are purchased, but to me, I think it's a fairly significant problem here that the community was pitched on option number 2 as an alternative that would not impact any additional homes. And it is in fact, it's taking additional homes. I mean, especially this particular subject has been a very sensitive issue in all of the communities surrounding the freeway interchange there. And so it's just a little bit disheartening to me that, you know, we built community support on an option that was billed as no additional homes taken, and yet we are taking additional homes. I would expect a little bit better from FDOT in terms of if they're going to go and pitch something like that to the community, given that this isn't like an unknown issue that's been that's not been talked about. It's been talked about significantly. For me, that's kind of an inexcusable bait and switch. Thank you.
Yeah, I do want to clarify though that there was significant public coordination. So this public coordination that's displayed on the screen that was part of a public coordination survey that the MPO did on their own volition. The department has engaged in we've had multiple forms of public engagement for the SEIS. I can mention some, and then Kirk can certainly chime in and mention others. So we had small group meetings with different communities. We met with the different neighborhood groups around. We had walk-in tours. We've also set up multiple flyers. We had an office set up where people could come and see the plans and see what was going on. We also had a set of library tours where we went to different libraries in multiple regions, downtown, North Tampa, New Tampa, we went all around the county to get input from citizens. Also, we also met with the different CRAs during the process, and we also, I think one other thing I forgot. We also met with we had some requests to meet with some people just one-on-one in their homes, and department staff did meet with people in their homes with their coordination too. There's anything else part of the coordination that I'm missing out, Kirk? But we had extensive public coordination, and just want to make sure that it wasn't just this one survey. It was extensive, in person and coordination with a lot of members of the communities.
Well, let me be clear about this, Craig. I'm not saying there wasn't community outreach. My specific issue, and it's very specific, is, okay, we have a survey that says there's not going to be any additional homes taken. We're now taking additional homes. So I guess my question is all this community outreach, right? Because I think their support for this plan was built on the theory mostly that there were no additional homes that were going to be taken. So during all of the community, but just let me finish real quick. During all the community outreach, were the plans shown that there would be additional homes taken during all of the in-person community outreach? I guess that's what I would like clarification on.
Yes, sir. It was shown. Oh, go ahead. Sure.
The operational improvements developed in the latter part of the SEIS, but as a result of input from the public, and so we went back and we sharpened our pencils, and we tried to decrease the impacts as much as possible. And out of that came these operational improvements. We have always shown that these parcels would be impacted by this operational improvement. That was before the survey by the MPO was done before that. And so we knew that we would be able to minimize it with our operational improvements. But we went back and these 7 parcels is what has came out of that exercise. And we've done a lot of coordination with the local communities. We made some acquiesce to some of their concerns by leaving Florida-Nebraska open. And so we've done a lot of public outreach.
Okay, I'm probably not doing a very good job of communicating.
Hoyt, if I may, I'd like the last speaker to identify himself.
I'm
And
sorry.
I'd
Yes,
ask that members please ask for recognition before just jumping in. The speaker, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Kirk Bogan with Environmental Management Engineer with the Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Kirk. Hoyt, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Bill. Now, I guess I'll just yield here because I feel like I'm not doing a good job of communicating my point. I don't want to keep going back around it. I just generally my concern is that we can't pitch a no build option in one way to gain support and then in another way say we're going to be taking homes. I think there's a disconnect there that probably should be worked out. Thank you.
Yeah, point well taken. Nikki, I'll recognize you in a moment. Christine, do you have a comment?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll be really brief. I think that there's a group of property owners that will be very adversely affected, and I don't know what the status of those property owners is. And those are the property owners, if these 6 parcels are taken over by DOT and there's an expansion of the I-4 footprint there, then what is, if I understand the Google Earth map I've just looked at, East 14th goes from being a tree-lined street to being a space where the property owners that are not being asked to give up their property for the highway will now be facing, instead of other residential scale properties, a closer and more ugly wall of highway support. So I want to just clearly put that on the record, that those constituents are not reflected in any way in this presentation. They will be adversely affected, in my opinion, and I don't know what their status is.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's a good point to bring up. And if you could go back to the PDF that Vishaka had up, this kind of ties back into why we're also proposing some of the trail segments down there is to provide a buffer for communities, so they don't just see an MSE wall right in front of their home. So you want to, so it's not only the trail, we're also looking at providing different amenities and landscaping in that area. So that the structure isn't, it's not just a wall in front of the house. That's actually, some amenities that they can use, and also some potential aesthetics, and also a trail that'd be more of a positive to the community than just a brick wall.
Thank you, Craig. I'm going to recognize Nicole. Nikki, go ahead.
It's a shame that we have, and I apologize. I'm on this call today, and I had to stop. I'm supposed to be on a construction site handling really important things today, and this is a really important issue, these homes. And what's frustrating that I'm hearing here is like what I'm saying is a bait and switch. We have so many issues right now that we're trying to look at. The study that we were looking at, I would like to first clarify for people who aren't familiar with it, was not directly about these homes. It was about the generalized plan for the fact that FDOT has not, nor have they ever presented a plan to correct malfunction junction. Okay, so we still do not have an absolute plan on the table from FDOT to correct the bottlenecks and all these issues, the bottleneck and all these issues in malfunction junction that you're seeing here on these maps. Now we're being asked for them to acquire properties, and they start off a presentation claiming this is requested by the community. Instead, this was a few people who took a huge regional survey who picked an option that does not even apply to what they are asking today. So just be clear that that is what you have been presented today by them as being proof that this is needed. I would like to make it also abundantly clear, I am very proud of this committee for the work that was done to create essentially a resolution for a racial equity resolution. This is also something that applies to Title VI, to federal funding, to how we are seen, especially with the new administration, with the Department of Transportation. And we see time and time again these these neighborhoods, these communities of concern, because they're not answering the question on who lives here for a reason. And these are communities of concern, people of color, people of economic disparity. This goes on and on. And we're asking them yet again to sacrifice so that we can cut the drive time down, even by spending $1 billion, saving people 4 minutes from outlying communities to get to a downtown interchange that still doesn't have a fix. If they were to come to us today with a real plan, this would be a legitimate request. It is not a legitimate request today. And I would like to propose a motion. I'm open to this motion being amended prior to being voted on, that we do not amend the TIP due to conflicts held against the racial equity resolution, which was recently adopted by the MPO and Planning Commission, and the non-discrimination plan updates that were provided to us specifically here by Josh and Dana and Johnny, and that entire presentation that we just saw. I am very concerned. So I make a motion that we do not amend the TIP for this currently. This does not fit into what we said we were going to prioritize as a committee. Now, if anybody would like to amend that or adjust or change this motion, like I said, I am open to that.
Thank you, Nicole. We have a motion.
Yeah, I just
We have a
want to make
motion.
clarification.
No, we need to have a second to the motion first.
Just a moment. Yeah, we have a motion to not approve the TIP as recommended. Is there a second?
I feel like I can hear, I can hear Rick or somebody and it's not coming through.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Chair. Could you restate the motion as you understood it?
Nikki's motion, as I understand it, is to not approve the TIP as presented.
Not as presented.
The amendment.
The TIP amendment. Yes.
Right, the amendment to the TIP, due to not only the fact that it, there's so many. I mean, I'm listening to Hoyt, and I mean, there's so many layers as to why, which is why I'm trying to phrase this. I've been sitting here racking my brain for 15 minutes, but ultimately,
well, I'll second the motion, yes. Nikki, that we disapprove this. I'll second that motion.
All right. For all the reasons previously stated, we have a motion to not approve the TIP. We have a second. Did someone have a point of clarification that they wanted to raise? Okay, apparently we've satisfied that question. Is there any discussion on the motion to not approve the TIP amendment as presented today?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you. And Nikki, thank you for making the motion. If you hadn't, I would have. First of all, just historically, I want to bring to the attention of the committee that this committee voted to strike Section 6 from the TIP last year. That's essentially the downtown interchange that we're talking about right now, which had many of the exact same propositions in it that we're discussing here today. So from a precedential point of view, precedent, not presidential as in Joe Biden, from a precedential point of view, I think it's helpful to know historically what this committee has done in the past in striking this. This is clearly a widening of the footprint of the interstate within a community of concern. It's right in the heart of the city. This is something that we have been fighting now for years. And by we, I mean those of us who happen to live in that area. I'm out of Tampa Heights, but have been working with people at VME Bore, Historic Ebor, the various Seminole Heights communities all along the corridor now for years to fight not just an expansion of the footprint, but also expansion of capacity along this interstate system. And this is in direct contravention of the will and the hopes and the dreams of the people that live there. I hope folks will take that into account, as I would if somebody were talking about South County, where I don't necessarily know as much. I am concerned that we really have not had any input from the DOT rep concerning VME Bore, or for that matter, Historic Ebor, and the extent to which they have been brought into the discussion regarding these changes, because despite all of the narrative to the contrary, this thing about right-of-way taking is new if you look at the documents, the things that people are notified about. And we just got done talking about notification for TIP amendments not too long ago. If people just go online and look at the TIP amendment documents, they see that there's supposed to be no right-of-way taken, no additional property. So that there's a matter of reliance there that I think is of concern, and VME Board in particular is right in the center, ground zero. It's a material change without notice, in my view. Also, voicing some of Nikki's concerns, I think this does fly in the face of the race equity resolution. It's doing exactly what we say we don't want to do. Amplifying on the ills of the past, doing absolutely nothing to mitigate. And that to me is unforgivable. And the BRT, yeah, there's language in this document about BRT that shouldn't be there. And that's in and of itself wouldn't have been a reason to raise my eyebrows, but I think it reflects some sloppiness on the part of the Department of Transportation. It shouldn't be there, and I do think it's a misdirection play. So I very much in support of the motion to not approve this TIP amendment. I hope we will follow suit as a committee. Thank you.
Terrence Trotz, you're recognized.
Yep. Appreciate everyone's comments. It just seems to me sometimes that we're thinking like the FDOT has like nefarious goals for doing the things that they do. And I would like to ask, I think Craig, maybe from your understanding, does the department understand the historical things that have taken place? And when you make decisions and engineering and go through the project making process or whatever, is the department considering this stuff? Because I feel like so this was discussed, I mean, it was discussed, and I understand that there's 7 houses and maybe that slide said 0, but if we're talking about doing damage to the environment, the community, I believe 220 homes being interrupted and disturbed was far worse. So there was options from 0 to 220. And this is what the design shows needs to happen with this low impact option. And I mean, then follow on, there is a process for working with the homeowners. It's not just the state grabbing the property. So I just wanted to kind of put those things out there and then ask Mr. Fox, does the department understand, or Mr. Bogan, does the department understand these things and consider them when making decisions?
Thank you, Terrence. Mr. Fox, you want to respond?
Yes, sir. Yes, the department does strongly consider the past racial inequities of the community. And I think that led to a lot of the decisions that was made. Initially, we were coming through with a full interchange reconstruction that was going to add express lanes. So just want to recap some of the decision points that were made since the original design. Because at first, we pretty much just had like option A, which was full reconstruction, and option B, which was still a major reconstruction also. Since then, we've pared down to just operational improvements, which still do relieve the bottlenecks that we see there daily, while having as least amount of right-of-way impacts as possible. Another decision that was in our original plans to improve operational safety was to close the Florida-Nebraska ramps, as Kirk mentioned before. And again, from receiving community input, we did pull back on that also, and leave the Florida-Nebraska ramps in there to serve the community's needs, because that although it was extremely low volume ramp, but it was a ramp that the communities both east and west of 275 do use. So we did make sure to leave that in there, along with the traffic operations group. They did provide some safety enhancements to that intersection also. We also did look at and are in the process of adding more bike facilities, and also adding more buffers. We have at areas around the interstate in various locations where, after the final interchange is built, although we're not impacting the parcel, the homes can be very, very close to there. So we want to kind of avoid some of the past mistakes that have happened in the past, as far as just, you know, you don't hit the parcel, but it's still, you know, you're looking at a brick wall as soon as you get out of the front of your house. So that's why we are proposing not only this trail network, but also we're working with the city, and we're going to be going out to the communities also to look at what amenities folks would like to have there, both in the north, south, and the south side of the interchange. In addition to that, I did hear it was proposed that there was $1 billion, but this interchange project, it's definitely not $1 billion. We're looking at somewhere under 200 million. It's just a ballpark estimate. As we get further along, we'll have more refined estimates, of course. But we are considering that, and what we want to do is provide improvements so we can reduce the bottlenecks, get some shoulders on the interstate so people can safely pull over if they're in a crash, while impacting as few parcels as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Christine Acosta, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Craig. I really appreciate your input on this. I want to just, declare that you and I have spent time together biking in the community. We've been on a board together. And so I have the utmost respect for you. But I have a real deep concern about the use of the words trails and bike networks adjacent to highways, because just this week I was attempting to use an exact similar trail like this in the West Shore District, and the trail starts and stops, and it's impassable at the highway ramps. I'm talking specifically at Lois Avenue. So it's really it could be disingenuous for trails to be promised when you really have like a segment of a pristine and beautiful trail that dead ends into a high-speed roadway that you can see another piece of the trail across the street, and you cannot safely or comfortably cross to get to the other safe part of the trail. So I just really wanted to put that on the record. I don't think that anyone has bad intentions right now, but I just want to be really clear, tossing about this promise of trails. It's highly questionable, in my opinion, at this moment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I could just make a real quick response to that. So basically, the areas where this trail will be interacting with a proposed off-ramp will be around 14th and 15th. And right there, we've actually already incorporated signals into our design to make sure that it's going to be a safe crossing, along with doing some complete street improvements around that area, so that it would involve shorter crossing distances around there, and also have a signalized crosswalk. Also, as proposed on the screen right now, so the crossings across both Nebraska Avenue, both north of I-4 and south of I-4, we do propose mid-block crosswalks. We also are proposing a mid-block crosswalk just across Palm. Also, I think the leader's a little off the map. And one thing that we're doing when we're designing this is that we do want it to actually make sense and not just dead end into a brick wall. So the terminuses of the trail are gonna connect to either sidewalks, or they're gonna connect to recreational park facilities, and where people can like say, so for instance, on the south end, it's going to connect to Perry Harvey Park, and by navigating Perry Harvey Park, you'll be able to access the CAC cycle track that's existing there too. So we are paying attention to where it terminates, and also we want to make sure that we do have safe crossings available for individuals too.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions or comments directly related to the motion on the floor, which is to deny approval of the tip? Terrence?
I just wanted to ask
David.
also. Okay, I did have my hand, but I just wanted to ask real quick. I think the MPO knows, do we still have the project that's designed to connect all of the trails? Is that still something that's in our purview?
Is that a question for Rich or even for Beth?
I think that's for Rich, yes.
Okay. Rich, you care to respond?
Yeah, so I think the answer is we have a trails master plan, and it gets it evolves over time. Frankly, what we're seeing on the map here is in addition to that. So these would be new segments, but there is a master plan that we hope to get Sun Trails funding to implement some of it. For example, the segment I think that Christine was referencing in the West Shore area, we've proposed a pedestrian bike overpass over Dale Mabry. That would be part of that Sun Trails connection. So that, right. So I mean, yes, there are pieces, but this would definitely be in addition to that.
Thank you. Hoyt Prindle, did you have a question or a comment?
I do, but I feel like David's had his hand up for a while, so I'll be happy to go after David Bailey.
Okay, David, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Hoyt. You know, I really want to echo Terrence's point here. The one thing that I know, having to drive in that area a lot, is there needs to be something has to be done. We were given 4 alternatives, and this one shows the least amount of impact on homes. Granted, it's 10 homes. Maybe they were shown 0 homes, but in the grand scheme of things, I think 10 homes is not something that definitely constitutes a bait and switch, if you will. I mean, it's minimal, and I think the FDOT representatives kind of mentioned that earlier. So, we asked FDOT to do something. I know a lot of people want something done regarding Malfunction Junction, and if this is the lesser evil, I think it's something we have to do now. People need relief in that area. So, my opinion is, I would like to make a motion to approve the requested amendment, because I think something has to be done.
Thank you, David. That motion is not accepted. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Hoyt, did you want to comment further on the motion? The motion is to not approve the TIP amendment. The TIP amendment is specifically related to the acquisition of 7 residential properties. Go ahead, Hoyt.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to be supporting this motion to not approve this portion to add this to the TIP. And I really think we have to do better here as a city and as a community. And I understand that FDOT is trying, and I understand that I don't think that there is a, malintent all the time with some of the projects that FDOT is putting forth. But this is our downtown core. And it continues to surprise me that we are one of the few metropolitan areas in the country that continues to keep putting forth projects that expand freeway footprints within the urban core. I've not seen plans to engineer this intersection that would reduce the footprint in the urban core, and that's something I'd like to see and could probably be done. I'm also not convinced that the department has maximized the non-expansion options, such as ramp metering, which you all have heard me talk about before, and I get looked at like a ghost sometimes by other officials, not the kind gentlemen that are before us today. And I just think this is our downtown core. This is the most valuable real estate in the community. And if we continue to add and we continue to take out homes and we continue to do it in a way that says, oh, it's just 10 here and there's another 10 there. And yes, I agree, 10 homes, 6 homes, not that much in the grand scheme of things. But what is it saying about our community that we're continuing to not put forth projects that, in my view, are really forward-looking for the 21st century and are going to make this area more desirable? It's just kind of the same old stuff that, frankly, communities across the country are rejecting. And I would hate to see Tampa continue to put forth the policies of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s and fall further behind while other communities are making appropriate changes forward. So I can never say I'm never going to support any one of these projects for the downtown interchanges, but we've got to do better than this, and I think we can. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Hoyt. Any other comments on the motion? We have a motion and a second to disapprove the TIP amendment.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This is Jeff Lucas. I have a comment, if I may. I quite frankly can't figure out the raise hand feature on my iPad.
Well,
I would just,
sorry, Jeff, you're not on my screen either. Go ahead.
that's quite all right. I would just like to echo Terrence and David's comments. And I'm not going to repeat them, but something has to be done. We have to do a better job of moving people around Hillsborough County. So that's all, Mr. Chair. I think they summed it up very well.
Thank you, Jeff.
Point of clarification. Who is Jeff Lucas?
He's a
Jeff
member.
Lucas is our committee member representing the Expressway Authority.
He's representing the Expressway Authority. Okay,
Correct.
so all right. Okay.
Thank you, Nicole. I think we're ready to.
I didn't know that we were allowed from the Expressway Authority to, or anybody to intervene and point out comments that push an agenda. So I was just confused.
I don't think Jeff is pushing an agenda. I think he was commenting on your motion. Is there any further comment? Anybody in the room have anything else? Hearing none, Gail, if you would please call the roll. The motion, as stated and seconded, is to not approve the TIP amendment. The amendment is to purchase 7 residential properties on the north side of Interstate 4 for approximately $2.5 million. The source of funds is identified in your packet. Gail, please call the roll.
David Bailey,
No.
Carolyn Brown,
Yes.
Hoyt Prindle,
Yes.
Steve Hollenkamp. I'm sorry, can you repeat?
You have to unmute yourself.
No.
Thank you. Alexis Bobak,
Yes.
Christina Costa. I'm sorry, repeat please.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Roberts,
No.
Nicholas Glover,
No.
Don Skelton,
No.
Jeff Lucas,
No.
Beatrice Zafra,
No.
Cliff Rice,
No.
Sharon Gamond,
No.
Ricardo Fernandez,
Yes.
Terrence Trott,
No.
Amy Espinoza,
Yes.
Rick Richmond.
No.
The motion fails 11-6.
Thank you, Gail. The motion having failed, this
I did not
item
get
is
to
still
vote
before us.
I
I'm
did not
sorry,
get to vote on my own motion.
I'm sorry. Would you ask Gail to record your vote?
I'm sorry about
Can
that.
we double
Nicole
check that?
Rice,
Are we missing other people? Yes. Are we missing other people?
Point of order. I think
Gail,
it's appropriate to go back through the voting totals to make sure we haven't missed anyone.
of course I can recall. David Bailey,
No.
Carolyn Brown,
No.
Hoyt Prindle,
Yes.
Stephen Hollenkamp,
No.
Nicole Rice,
Yes.
Alexis Bobak,
Yes.
Christina Costa,
Yes.
Bill Roberts,
no.
Nicholas Glover,
No.
Don Skelton,
No.
Jeff Lucas,
No.
Beatrice Zafra, Beatrice
Beatrice,
Zafra,
are you muted?
I had previously recorded her vote as no. Cliff Rice,
No.
Sharon Gamond,
No.
Ricardo Fernandez,
Yes.
Terrence Trott,
No.
Amy Espinoza,
Yes.
Rick Richmond.
No.
It will be 11-7 with a failure.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
motion fails 11-7. Yes, is your question?
what I would like to make a motion, if I may.
Please go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the requested amendment to the fiscal year 2020, 2021 through 2024, 2025 transportation improvement program to purchase the 7 parcels for the downtown interchange.
Thank you. We
Second.
have a motion.
Second.
Is there a second? Who seconded?
Second.
Second. Yep.
Give me a name, please.
I think
Jeff
that was
Lucas.
Jeff. Yep.
Jeff Lucas seconds the motion. Any further, is there any discussion on the motion to approve the TIP amendment as presented? Any further discussion? I do not see any hands raised. Oh,
Hoyt has a
sorry,
hand
Hoyt.
up.
Hoyt has a hand up. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to state that the approval is contingent upon FDOT not taking more than the 7 parcels currently articulated during the project.
Okay, we have a proposed amendment to approve the TIP amendment as presented, subject to the DOT agreement not to encumber or purchase any more than the 7 identified residential properties. Is there a second?
Nicholas Glover.
Nicholas Glover will second that motion. Thank you, Nick. Any discussion on the amendment to limit the approval of the TIP to the purchase of the 7 properties proposed and identified?
Yes.
Seeing none, Gail,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Did someone want to make a comment?
This was
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Nicole
No
Wright.
discussion?
I think I heard Nicole first.
Chair, may I be recognized for a
Nicole?
moment?
Yes, please, Nicole, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I understand that we have to have a solution. I understand that people may feel that this is some sort of attack on FDOT, but I would also like to make a comment that this board, a citizens advisory committee, is here specifically to make sure that we protect communities, all communities. And we have set forth very clear standards that we completely agreed upon a board on how we shall not impact further communities in planning of roadway expansion. This plan forward to you today does not in any way, shape, or form answer very pertinent questions before handing a blank check to the Florida Department of Transportation to acquire these properties. It does not specify, many people do not understand the rise in the last few years in real estate and opportunity in this district and the amount of money and investment that could be far more important to our community and the long-term vision of Tampa. I highly encourage you, while we may have to do this eventually, this may not be an option going down the road. FDOT connects lines. They work on how they're working this interstate. They're not looking at community development or urban planning. So when we say to them, sure, go ahead, and they still don't have a fix yet completely for the congestion or the traffic flow, and you might save 2 minutes for a few people and cost millions and millions and millions of dollars, we are not doing our job as a committee. And that is ultimately why we are here. And they're always going to be able to lobby for what they want, and that's okay. They are an agency that does have an important role. But I really firmly want you to reevaluate as an individual what your role is here today and how we can support the mission that we set forward as a committee and what we prioritize in community planning, urban development, and a future for the city. And with that, I just yield. I feel that there's just no other way without a private discussion where we all see each other again face to face to work through this issue. But you are writing them a blank check right now.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
David Bailey?
So, my concern about amending my motion is that to Christine's point, if there are some, she brought up there are other homes that are maybe adversely affected. And if FDOT happens to find that they are and want to compensate them, I think that they should be able to compensate those individual homeowners. So I would ask that my original motion be voted on if possible, without the amendment.
Thank you. Your comment is so noted. The rules of order that we operate under require that we take amendments first and then the main motion. We'll try to follow that procedure. Other comment? Yes, Terrence?
I just wanted to put out there that I don't think that, I'm definitely down for equality and not messing with certain demographics, communities. However, we never said that there would be no impact to anybody. What we should be doing is making sure that there's no undue, unfair impact just because somebody's in a certain situation. And I don't think we're doing that there. The highway is there. We're not building a new highway there. So we're just trying to improve for the neighborhood, the community, and the traffic that goes through there. So it's just, that has to be clear. Anytime you do something where you're trying to help people, it's always where you're trying to do the least negative impact with like concerted effort to do so, and not the opposite where you're like, okay, these people are poor, let's just plow here. And I don't think that's what's going on.
Thank you. Other comments? Nicole, one brief comment, if you may.
This is where there's the disconnect. And respectfully, I understand that, like, again, there has to be solutions. We have no idea, and nor has it been presented to us, the tax implications on these really valuable parcels that are being taken from people who live in this community. If you look at that map and you look at the urban area there, this is not a small swath of land. This is not a small impact. And the people that it serves are the people going through, and not the communities. It's not creating communities that actually have a better transportation network. It's just expanding interstate through communities. And this has been the problem over and over and over, and we refuse to learn this lesson in the Tampa Bay area.
Well, Eric Lamb, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just want to make a quick comment. I want to remind everyone on this board and on this call that people do respond to incentives. Increasing safety, of course, is highly important. Commute times, people, about 43,000 people moved here to the Tampa Bay region last year. When they select a location to live, commute time to their workplace and their location will come into play. I think, however we pivot this, we need to incentivize not driving and having a more dense area. Many people may not agree with me, but I want to remind everyone that decisions are made here that everyone else will adjust their lifestyle. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but it's going to be very hard to cater to everyone.
Thank you, Eric. All right, Hoyt Prindle, do you have a comment?
Yes, since I made the amendment to the motion, I'll just be very frank. and partly talking to Nikki and some of my cohorts that I think don't support this project. This is going to pass the board. If we don't get this amendment, it's going to pass. And so from my point of view, I'm trying to find a way that we can maybe bridge the gap to lessen what I don't believe is the right decision here. And so that I'm putting forth this amendment because if it's not here, it's going to pass. We've already seen what the votes are. The votes have this to pass. And so I'm hoping that maybe we can somewhat come together and bridge the gap to say, okay, let this move forward, but let's make sure that it's going to be limited to these 7 properties. So that's why I put forth the amendment. That's my position. And, you know, I think with that, probably can move to vote.
Thank you, Hoyt. Okay, I'd like to call for a vote on the amendment. The amendment is to limit any approval of the TIP amendment to these 7 identified properties north of Interstate 4. Gail, if you would call the roll, please. We'll vote on the amendment first, and then we'll vote on the actual motion to approve the TIP. We're voting on the amendment. Go ahead.
David Bailey,
No.
Carolyn Brown,
Yes.
Hoyt Prindle,
Yes.
Steve Hollenkamp, Steve Hollenkamp,
Steve is having audio trouble, but he's telling me he wants to vote yes for the amendment.
Nicole Rice,
Yes on the amendment.
Alexis Boback,
Yes.
Christina Costa,
Yes.
Bill Roberts,
Yes.
Nicholas Glover,
Yes.
Don Skelton,
No.
Jeff Lucas,
No.
Beatrice Zafra, Beatrice,
She's muted.
Come back to her if you would, Gail.
of course, Cliff Rice,
No.
Sharon Gamond,
Yes.
Ricardo Fernandez,
Yes.
Terrence Trott,
No.
Amy Espinoza,
Yes.
Rick Richmond,
No.
Beatrice,
She may have stepped
Rich, is
away.
she still online?
She is, I see her still online, but she has not unmuted herself, so she may be away.
Okay, we will show her as a no vote, having called her name twice. Gail, if you would give us the total on the votes for the amendment.
When you say no vote, I mean, we didn't record her vote, not that she voted no.
Correct.
I'm sorry, as a non-vote.
Non-vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Better.
so the motion does pass 11-6 with 1 non-vote.
Okay. We'll now vote on the main motion as amended. David made the motion to approve the TIP amendment as presented to us. If this committee approves it, we will recommend it to the MPO board with the amendment with our amendment, that the funds be restricted to the acquisition of these 7 properties. I'd like to ask Gail to call the roll on the main motion, please.
David Bailey,
Yes.
Carolyn Brown,
Yes.
Hoyt Prindle,
Yes.
Steve Hollenkamp,
Steve is having audio trouble. He's asked that his vote be recorded as a yes.
thank you, Nicole Rice,
I'm unclear. We're voting. Could you please repeat the motion and the impact of the motion, Chair? I'm confused at this point, and I
Yes,
apologize.
the main motion that we're voting on is to approve the TIP amendment as presented to us today with the amendment that the funds be restricted to purchasing the 7 residential properties identified in the presentation. The question is yes or no on the main motion.
On the main motion,
Yes.
irregardless of the amendment.
The amendment has passed. It is
Right.
part of the
So
motion.
regardless of the amendment, it's about the actual approval of these funds for FDOT acquisition, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, absolutely no.
Thank you. Next.
Alexis Bobak,
Yes.
Christine Acosta,
No.
Bill Roberts,
Yes.
Nicholas Glover,
Yes.
Don Skelton,
Yes.
Jeff Lucas,
Yes.
Beatrice Zafra, Cliff Rice,
Yes.
Sharon Gamond,
Yes.
Ricardo Fernandez,
Nope.
Terrence Trott,
Yes.
Amy Espinoza,
No.
Rick Richmond.
Yes.
The motion passes 13-4.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Just a moment. Let me clarify that there would be one non-vote because I believe.
With one, yes, correct, with one non-vote.
Okay, thank you. Hoyt, go ahead with your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as I understood my motion, as I was putting it forth, I understood it to mean that we would approve this with the contingency that there would be no additional right of way taken with this project. And at least as the amendment was explained during the last vote, I understood it to mean that we were just limiting the funds to these 7 properties. But I want to make sure it's clear that I did say that there would be this, and then there would be no further right of way. I want to make sure that everybody understood that's what it said, because I guess I got a little confused with as we explained it further.
Well, Hoyt, thank you for that question. I did write down when you made the motion that it be not more than these 7 properties, and then you further went on in your explanation of the motion that there be no further right of way. So, in my mind, I think they are close enough, similar enough that the effect may be the same. But if I'm not, correct me.
No, I just want to be clear. That's what everybody else understood when they were voting for it. I wouldn't want us to.
Okay. All right. Yes. Terrence, did you have a question?
Yeah, just to explain my clarity or lack of, I don't know if exactly what Hoyt's saying is possible. We're not voting on the project. This was an amendment for additional dollars for 7 properties. Project's already been approved, I thought.
That's the way I understood the motion, yes.
So for these dollars, there won't be 8 houses procured. That's how I understood the motion.
Yeah.
And the chair's understanding is that the motion further restricted the funds to these 7 properties. So, any other questions or people who wish to explain their vote? If not, I'd like to move on, given the hour. The next item on our agenda is a status report.
Nikki is requesting recognition.
I'm sorry, Nikki's not on the screen. Go ahead, Nikki.
Point of clarification. For people voting on this today, and people have the right to vote how they choose to vote, I would like to make sure that people understand that we are not the ones who vote. Ultimately, when this goes forward to them, it is as presented to us as a committee. The amendment that we made is merely a suggestion. And when they vote as a board, they are voting to essentially allow FDOT for acquisition of this area. Is that correct?
I think it's fair to state that we will make our position and our vote known to the MPO board. They may choose to accept our recommendation or not accept it. You're correct.
Right, because our amendment for those people who voted is simply a suggestion. Ultimately, you're saying yes to the initial request by FDOT when you vote for this. So I just wanted to make that point of clarification for those who voted yes.
Thank you. Any further comments on this item? All right. Now we can move on to our status reports. The first status report is a TIP presentation by Dr. Wong. Johnny, go ahead.
Thanks. Rich, can you make me the presenter, please?
I can certainly try.
I think I did.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. All right, I hope everybody's comfy. This is going to be a long presentation, so I apologize in advance. Once again, I'm Johnny Wong, Hillsborough MPO staff, and this morning I want to talk to you about the Transportation Improvement Program update. This is something that this is a plan that gets updated each year, and it always generates a lot of questions and comments, and I'm going to do my best today to explain the process and get you prepared for what's going to happen next month when it's actually showtime. So before we go any further, I just want to let you all know that this is not an action item. We're not asking you to approve anything today, but if you have any questions or comments or suggestions to other members of the CAC about how each of you approach the TIP review process, I'd be happy to hear those at the end. All right, so moving on. Many of you have been through this process before. Some of you have been through this process more times than I have. Some of the information here will be just a reminder to you all. Much of it will look familiar, but this year the TIP will be getting a major refresh. So even for some of the experienced folks on this committee, the TIP document may look a little bit different. The presentation that I'm going to go through today has 3 sections. The first will be the longest. I want to begin by decoding the TIP and kind of demystifying it, if you will. The first one's the longest because what I'm going to discuss now is what the TIP is and kind of describe what the production process is. So the TIP, or TIP, Transportation Improvement Program, it's a plan that has 5 years worth of transportation projects in it. The 5 years of projects in the TIP are the first 5 years of our long-range plan. The long-range plan is a 20 or 25-year vision. Sometimes it's even beyond a 20 or 25-year time horizon, meaning that it's just the long-term vision of what we see happening in the community regarding transportation. Of course, a 25-year document, it's impossible for us to include a ton of detail about the projects. That would just be way too many projects to describe accurately. So most of the detail about the projects is included in the TIP. Because the TIP is only 5 years, everything in it can be described in a lot more detail. So you get information in it like a more accurate cost estimate of what the projects will be. You get information on what phase the project is entering into. You get more specific information about the corridors, like the extent of the project, whereas the long-range plan is intentionally left a bit broad. The TIP is one of the MPO's main responsibilities, and at least in the state of Florida, it has to contain 5 years of projects, and it also has to be updated each year. That's not how it works in all other states. So in the state of Florida, we're required to do a bit more work. The TIP is also subject to a whole bunch of federal and state requirements, but some of the main ones that I included on this slide are that it has to be consistent with the long-range plan, as I've already mentioned. It has to be coordinated with FDOT and HART. It has to include regionally significant projects. It has to include projects that are funded by the Federal Highway Administration or the Federal Transit Administration. And it cannot be a wish list. It's not just a list of all the projects we can dream up. It has to actually be achievable. And the way that the pertinent legislation describes it is that it must be cost feasible, meaning that based on the amount of revenues we're expecting, the costs cannot exceed that. They have to match. And then finally, it has to be submitted to the public for feedback. So we go through a lot of effort to make sure that the public has ample opportunity to comment on the projects that are listed in the tip, comment on the priority list, and then we use that information to make edits as we're producing the tip. And then, of course, I've already mentioned that within the tip is a list of priority projects. The prioritization methodology that we use has to be documented and it has to be data-driven. Next slide, please. Oh, why did I say next slide? I forgot that I was driving. I'm channeling the TAC from yesterday. My apologies. So anyway, the tip, if I was going to summarize it in just a few words, I would say that it's a plan that is composed of just a lot of lists of different projects. There's at least 3 lists in the tip, and we have maintained the table order for consistency. So Rick and some of the other folks who've been doing this for a long time, Bill and others, table 1 is what we call the existing priorities funded for construction. Table 2 are candidate projects that are looking to get funded, and table 3 are all other projects that will be funded within the next 5 years. Within the tip draft that we included in your agenda packet, I believe that only table 1 was completed in time to include. However, all 3 of these tables are available on our website right now. So you may ask, if the tip is just a bunch of lists of projects, where do the projects come from? Well, table 1 is a list of projects that have already been elevated to the status of priorities, meaning that they have been prioritized because we believe that they meet an urgent need within the community. So a project can be graduated, if you will, to a priority if we are convinced based on data that it'll have a major impact on safety or congestion or mobility or infrastructure. Projects that are graduated to priorities are seeking funding, right? And once the priorities receive some funding, then they get moved onto table 1. So projects that are listed on table 1 need to remain on that table until construction is complete. And I already mentioned this a little bit earlier in my first presentation to you all, that FDOT really wants us to include projects on this list until construction is totally complete, because it sends a signal that there's still community support to complete the project. Now, table 2. This is always a topic of a lot of conversation. So this is a table that I would advise you to spend a lot of time reviewing and kind of like taking in the details so that you can ask very informed questions next month. Table 2 is a list of projects that have been submitted to us by our agency partners or jurisdictions. What I mean by agency partners or jurisdictions are City of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, also Hillsborough County, the airport, Port Tampa Bay, T-BARDA, HART. If any of those agencies or agency partners or jurisdictions submit a list of project priorities or a list of priorities to us, we organize them according to whether or not they will have an impact on one of the investment programs that we're interested in. I'll go into a little bit more detail on this later, so if I'm confusing you, I apologize. When we meet with the jurisdictions, they talk to us about what their priorities are for the coming year. And then they put that in a formal letter to request that we add all of their projects to the priority list. Just because they request it doesn't mean that they become priorities. So if they send us a list of projects and one of them happens to be like, I'll just use like a weird example. If they say, I want money to build a hot dog stand, well, that's not anything that we care about. So it wouldn't be included on the priority list. But if they submit a project to us that will have a positive impact on safety or congestion, then it could be added to the priority list based on our analysis of the project. And then table 3. Table 3 is kind of long because it includes a bunch of different sub lists. So projects that are included on table 3 include projects from the FDOT work program. It includes requests that we get for planning studies. It includes some projects we get that don't neatly fit into our investment programs. And we also include locally funded projects. We find locally funded projects in our partner agencies or jurisdictions capital improvements programs, CIP. It's important to note that even though we include projects from the CIP in table 3, the MPO doesn't really control what happens with those transportation projects, because if a project is funded with local dollars, the MPO, we don't have any impact on that project. We only include projects in the CIP to assist with coordination and make sure that the projects kind of fit together in a cohesive way. So I'm going to go back to table 2 for a second, because again, this is possibly one of the most controversial aspects of the tip is talking about what our priorities should be. So once the jurisdictions or agency partners submit projects to us, we take a look at all of them. We look at all of the projects that they submitted. This year, it was approximately 20. We categorize them into one of our investment programs, and the icons are shown to the right, based on what we believe the impacts of the project will be. So if a project is submitted to us and we believe that it'll have a positive impact on infrastructure condition, it'll go in this investment program, which is called State of Good Repair and Resiliency. If we believe a project will have an impact on safety, it goes in the Vision Zero investment program. If it'll have an impact on congestion, it goes in Smart Cities. Multimodal travel or mobility goes in Real Choices When Not Driving. And if it's either a very expensive project or a highway widening project, or if it'll add capacity through transit, it goes in Major Investments program. So that's kind of step 2. We put all of the projects into the appropriate investment program based on what we believe the benefits of the project will be. Once they're organized into that investment program, we try to find the most appropriate data to quantitatively analyze the impacts of the project. And we look at a host of different criteria. There's probably too many to list right now, but based on the data, we have these methodologies that we use to assess the projects. And then based on what the anticipated impact of each project will be, we rank them in order. So within each of these 5 program categories, all of the projects that fit into each one are ranked. And they're ranked in order from top to bottom. The top of the list means that it's going to have the biggest impact on one of our community's urgent needs. And as you get there, as you make your way down the list, that means it's going to have less impact. Another part of table 2 that you might want to pay some attention to is this column that I have circled in red. So to make it onto table 2, it means that a project is a priority. It means that we believe that it'll have an impact on one of the community's needs, but that it's not funded yet. Based on the type of project, based on the agency that submitted the project, based on the facility type of the project, the MPO makes suggestions to our partners about which funding sources to go after. I believe on the first or second page of the tip draft that you all have seen, there's a link that directs you to a glossary that has funding codes explaining what some of these abbreviations mean. But some of the more common ones that you're going to see as you look at table 2 are SU. SU are flexible dollars. They have They can be applied to a lot of different kinds of projects, including transit, bike ped projects, roads, highways. They can be applied to different agencies across jurisdictions. So those are able to be applied to a lot of different kind of projects. Other funding codes are a little bit more restrictive. TA, for example, which is at the top row and column of this little screenshot on the slide. TA stands for Transportation Alternatives. So funds from that funding source can only be used for smaller multimodal projects like bike ped facilities or recreational trails. HSIP, another funding source, which is a little bit more restrictive. Those funds can only be used for highway safety projects. So a project to qualify for HSIP has to demonstrate that it'll have a significant impact in reducing fatal and injury crashes. And it's not on this screenshot, but SIGP, CIGP are county incentive grant program dollars. So that program gives money to the county, and it can be spent on projects that will reduce congestion on the state highway system. So you see there's kind of 3 levels of restrictions about where that money can go. Aside from the funding column, another good resource to help you understand the tip is the mapping app, and the link to the page on the website is included at the top of this slide. If you click around on the mapping tool, you can see projects that have already been approved. So all of the lines on this map that you're seeing are projects that were approved at last year's tip. And you can kind of click around on the base layers that I've circled with the that I've circled in red. And if you turn that on, you can get an idea of what the density is. And if you're familiar with the layout of the county, you can kind of get an idea of what the characteristics are of the communities where these projects are going. There's another resource on our website that should be able to assist, which is called the Health Atlas. The Health Atlas allows you to map projects against our communities of concern. So you can see, based on the location of projects already in our tip, what the demographic characteristics are of the neighborhood. And you can kind of see if the projects are located in a community that has a higher proportion of racial minorities, or a community that's a little bit lower income, or if it has a higher proportion of folks with a disability, or if car ownership is limited, things like that. We are working toward integrating both the demographic characteristics and the population density across the county into the tip mapping tool. That was based on feedback we received from the CAC working group 2 meetings ago. They said that they wanted to be able to assess the equity impacts of all the projects and get a sense of why projects might be needed in a certain part of the county. I did heed that request. I submitted a work order with our staff to try to make that happen, and I'm hoping that it'll be complete within the next week or 10 days, somewhere in that time frame. All that information is already available on the website. It's just a little bit confusing or maybe complicated because you have to scroll back and forth between the communities of concern map and the tip mapping tool. It's not available at the same time in the same place, so I apologize for that. All right, that wraps up section 1. Section 2, I want to quickly go over some of the highlights from updated lists, Table 1 and Table 2, and get you prepared for what you're going to see at next month's meeting when the action will be requested. All right, so Table 1 has been reformatted. In years past, the list of projects that have already received some funding, it was just out of order. I don't know that there was any real structure to the list, and it was difficult to sort through and identify what the project actually was seeking to accomplish, how much the project costs. So this year we color-coded the investment program that the project belongs into. So it's color-coded from red to orange, and then purple, blue, and green in that order, which means that the infrastructure projects come at the top of the list because that's the MPO's highest priority. Right under infrastructure maintenance comes safety, which is the MPO's second highest priority based on public feedback that we've received in the past. So there's a little bit more structure. It's a little bit better organized. And there are also 4 additions to Table 1 from last year. And I think only one project was completed that we know of. So Bruce B. Downs was a priority that had some funding for construction. Bruce B. Downs from Pebble Creek to County Line Road, that project was completed, so it's been removed. There may be other projects on the list that have already been completed, but we're working with our agency partners to clean this up and make sure that we don't have anything listed on here that's already been done. So aside from the projects that have been completed being changed, there are 4 additions. The first is bus replacements, bus stop capital repairs, T-bar to van pool support, and then a safety project, or sorry, not a safety project, a major project on Rio Street from Gray to Cypress and Howard Franklin Bridge trail connections. For brevity of this presentation, I only included the top screenshot so that you could recognize Table 1 when you see it. The full list is available using this link that I included at the bottom of the page. Some of you have seen this slide before, and I just want to briefly touch on it before we get into the nuts and bolts of Table 2. This slide shows the results of our analytical work when we were producing the 2045 long-range plan. That plan was adopted in November of 2019, but leading up to the adoption, we did a ton of quantitative research to figure out, based on certain investment levels, what could be accomplished within our community and how big of a problem, or how big the problem is, and how much our investments could go towards solving them. This specific slide shows what would have been possible if we had funding equivalent to a 1-cent sales tax. We know that, at least for the time being, that money's off the table. So we had to walk back our projections a little bit. And as a matter of fact, each of these goals, or each of these things that we could have accomplished with 1 cent, I believe that we can reduce the impact by 40%, if not more. So rather than resurfacing all roads every 17 years, as you see at the top of this slide, I believe that we're looking at like 30 years on average. So that's how the amount of funding can impact these goals. Sorry, before I get into the nuts and bolts of Table 2, I wanted to go over a couple other things. So this information should connect another document that the MPO produces, the State of the System Report, to the tip. The MPO board has adopted performance goals, performance targets for all of these different investment programs, hoping to address the community's most urgent needs. We know that maintaining pavement and maintaining bridges are 2 of the top considerations that our board has, and the public as well. So back in 2018, the board established targets for us to strive toward achieving. The goal is to have more than 60% of interstate pavement in good condition, to have less than 5 in bad condition, to have more than 40% of non-interstate NHS pavements in good condition and less than 5 in poor condition. And then our bridge target is pretty ambitious, to have greater than 50% in good condition. We're actually far exceeding that. About 78% of our bridges are in good condition or better. However, there's still a $100 million backlog worth of projects that need to be completed on bridges. So that should give you a sense of the magnitude of the problem we're facing based on the current levels of investment we have. We also have targets for condition of our transit assets. We set targets for the condition of buses and non-revenue vehicles that Hart and T-BARTA owns, and the condition of bus stop facilities and rail. So we have a huge backlog of problems, but we also have ambitious goals. So with the limited funding we have, we try to invest it in the projects that will yield the most impact. And because we have such a tremendous backlog of infrastructure projects, in reality, what ends up happening with the State of Good Repair investment program is each year the MPO just allocates $4 million in SU funds for Hart to put toward either bus replacements or bus stop capital projects to improve those. For the second investment program, Vision Zero, we have a ton of safety targets that we've adopted and modified over the years. Two of the safety targets that have an impact on TIP projects are the number of fatalities and the number of serious injuries. When we're prioritizing safety projects on table 2 of the TIP, what we really look at are 5 years worth of crash data. We sort through 5 years worth of crash data looking for fatalities and serious injuries, and then we divide those by the number of centerline miles in each of the safety projects. So in the end, what we end up with is an estimate of how many crashes would be avoided per centerline mile for all of the projects that appear in our safety bucket. And this year, some of the additions to the Vision Zero priority list in table 2 are a safety project on Dale Mabry from Mango Ave to West Pearl Ave. There's a West Shore Boulevard Complete Street project from Kennedy to Boy Scout. Phases 2A and 3C of the Green Spine cycle track. There are 2 sidewalk projects around middle schools in Plant City, one at Tomlin and one at Marshall. There's a safety project on Lois from Kennedy to Boy Scout. 2 projects in Temple Terrace, one from Bullard Parkway, or one on Bullard Parkway from Glenarvin to 78th Street, one on Davis Road from Morris Bridge to Temple Terrace Highway. There's another safety project on West Shore from Fair Oaks to Neptune Way. And lastly, Ashley Drive from Tyler to Laurel Street. Our third investment program in table 2 is Smart Cities. Smart Cities, the focus of this investment program is to invest in projects that will improve reliability. We have some pretty ambitious targets for improving reliability on the interstate. We want more than 75% of the network to be reliable. And reliability is defined in a very complex way, so I'm not going to get into it right now because I don't want to confuse you all, but the MPO's goal in general is not necessarily to reduce congestion as much as possible. We understand that based on the number of cars using our roadways, that there's always going to be some level of congestion, but what we don't want is a 20-minute commute to be 60 minutes one day and 20 minutes the next. We want it to be relatively consistent on a day-to-day basis. When we're assessing projects that fit into the Smart Cities investment program, we look at a whole bunch of different performance criteria. Because a lot of these projects can be so varied, it's difficult to compare the same performance metrics across all projects. So some of the performance criteria we may look at is travel time during the peak periods, like morning rush hour and afternoon rush hour. We could look at the travel delay measured in minutes. For an intersection project, we could look at delay that, or we could look at the amount of delay within a quarter mile of the intersection. We could look at delay within 1 square mile if it's a project around a specific location. Like if it's a congestion project around a school, we may look at delay on all of the roads that are within 1 square mile of that point. And then for transit projects, we can look at on-time performance, which measures how often a bus is on time to its destination. So we added 4 projects to the Smart Cities program for this year. 1, 2, and 3 are all in Plant City. They are Alexander Street at Jim Johnson Road, Alexander Street at James Redmond Parkway, and then South Park Road at Coronet. And lastly, a replacement to Hart's CAD AVL system. That CAD AVL is one of those projects that doesn't, or that is not easily compared against other projects because it's so different than most congestion projects. The CAD AVL system, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it allows for vehicle tracking. So Hart can get a better sense of where the vehicle is located along its route and at what time it will arrive to its next destination. And that allows Hart to have more reliable service. The fourth investment program is called Real Choices When Not Driving, and this is focusing on improving multimodal travel. So a lot of the projects that fit into this program are walk bike projects. They could be transit projects as well, recreational trails, side paths, things like that. When we have a project submitted to us, we assess whether or not it's a priority based on the population density along the project. So for some of these bike trails, for example, we'll take a look at what the pop density is in census tracts along that corridor or along the bike trail. And we rank them in order from high population density to medium high to medium low to low, and that's how they're rated. There were quite a few submissions to this investment program this year. 5 of them are pretty similar in nature. They're all submissions from the city of Tampa, and they're multimodal network improvements, and there's some element of safety improvement as well. But even recognizing that there are safety elements to the project, we thought they fit better in Real Choices category. So they are West River Walk from Platt Street to Bro Rain, West River Walk from Kennedy to Palmetto Street, Rome Ave from Platt to Columbus Drive from Rome Ave to North Boulevard, and then Ridgewood Park from North Boulevard to Columbus. The 6th edition is 14th Street from north of Columbus Drive to south of 13th Ave, the Adamo Drive Greenway Gap from 22nd Street to 34th, a Whiteway Drive footbridge in Temple Terrace, which is a small bridge that would be strong enough to accommodate golf cart crossings, Baum Road from US 301 to Clement Pride Road, and then the South Tampa Greenway, specifically at Picnic Island Park. And then the last category, in terms of how the MPO prioritizes the investments and what we think are most important, this is the last on the list. So as I presented them to you, are in order based on public feedback that we've got. Again, at the top of the list are the infrastructure improvements, followed by safety, followed by congestion, followed by mobility and multimodalism, and then finally major investments. This program category is somewhat unique because not only are these some of the expensive projects, capacity additions, they also have to be referenced in the LRTP specifically. So if a project is not listed in the LRTP, it cannot be added to the major investments program area or investment program. We look at 3 criteria when we're assessing the impact of these. The first is employment density. So we look at the future projections for where employment will occur within the county, and we rank them based on whether it's a major, minor, or if there's no job cluster. And then we look at volume to capacity ratio. It's basically an assessment of how bad the traffic is on a corridor that will be impacted with widening or some other type of capacity addition. And then we look at the anticipated hours of delay that will be reduced if these projects were to be built. There are 4 additions to the list from last year. The first is a transit project, the North-South Metro Rapid Construction Tampa Arterial BRT project from HART. Second is Brush Street from Whiting to Kennedy Boulevard. Third is Gibsonton Drive from I-75 to US 301. And the last is Big Bend Road. These are bookends on Big Bend. One falls on the western portion from I-75 and the other on the eastern portion from I-75. US 41 to Covington Garden Drive, and then on the east is Simmons Loop Road to US 301. Big Bend Road is also a trip priority. This is the last section. I'm going to quickly touch on regional projects because I just talked about Big Bend Road, and I want to explain some nuances to that project. So as I mentioned on one of the first slides, regionally significant projects have to appear in the TIP. There are there are some processes that are used to determine whether or not a project has regional significance. And there are also 3 different types of regionally significant projects. I know I'm kind of like creating additional layers here, so I apologize if it's confusing. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions after I'm done. But so Big Bend Road is a project that we believe would fall under TRIP priorities. TRIP stands for Transportation Regional Incentive Program. To be eligible for TRIP funding, a project has to be regionally significant, meaning that it has to connect to a major job center. It has to facilitate regional travel and create the conditions for commerce. We believe that Big Bend Road meets those criteria, so we are going to score that and submit it to the TRIP working group for review. The TRIP working group is a staff working group composed of folks from all the MPOs within the Tampa Bay area. That includes Citrus Hernando, Pasco, Polk, Pinellas, us, and Sarasota Manatee. If that group believes that Big Bend Road is regionally significant, it will submit it to the CCC board, and that is an acronym for another group of locally elected officials who will approve it and add it to the TRIP priority list. Some of the other regionally significant projects could include trail projects, and Wade Reynolds, who you're going to hear from after me, is the organizer of that group, and then also other major projects. So I've included a screenshot of Big Bend Road just so you can get an idea of the extent of the project. It's a construction project to add 2 additional lanes. So these 2 segments of Big Bend Road are currently 4, and the project would expand it to 6. And the Interstate 70, the portion that intersects with I-75, was formerly a TRIP priority. I believe that it's already been funded, which is why that segment in the middle is missing. It's because it's already moved forward. And the request for this year is to get about $13.8 million in funding to construct the bookends on either side of it. So that pretty much wraps it up. I have a couple more slides, but the heavy lifting has already been done in this presentation. You clearly have a lot of work to do getting ready for the meeting next month. The TIP draft, I'm presenting a very preliminary version of it to you today. When we meet again in early June, that's when a decision has to be made. We wanted to hurry up and get the TIP draft completed and tables 1, 2, and 3 completed earlier than in previous years, because it was a goal of my team to give you 2 opportunities to review it, so that there isn't a long list of unanswered questions and putting you on the spot to make a decision when you don't have all the information. So my homework assignment that I would like to assign to you all is to take the next month to really review the TIP draft. It's very short, so it should be simpler this year than in past years. Review tables 1 and 2, and then write down any questions that you can think of. And we'll have staff from our agency partners available at that meeting to answer any questions, so that you feel you're making an informed decision when you vote. The draft is already available on the website. We're still making some changes. In fact, we had a meeting with the CAC working group Monday evening, and they gave us a lot of great comments that we're working to include in it. Once we have absorbed those comments, we're going to submit the draft to DOT for a preliminary review, and DOT will let us know if we're missing anything that's required. We're also going to continue collecting comments, not only from the committees, but from the public over the course of the rest of May and the first week of June, before June 9th, which is the date of the TIP public hearing, and the board will be asked to approve it then. When we bring the final version of the TIP back to you at the CAC June meeting, we're going to give you the opportunity to ask questions, and it's usually a very long meeting because there's a lot of remarks, there's a lot of discussion. So if you're new to this committee, I would definitely be prepared for a long meeting. At that time, we're going to give an abbreviated version of this presentation. What you're going to expect from staff, specifically me, is I'm going to describe the tip draft very briefly. I'm going to recap tables 1 and 2 so that you're aware of all of the changes that have occurred to those tables from last year. And if there have been any changes to any information in tables 1 or 2, I'm going to call those out so that you're aware of them. We're also going to be providing pie charts and tables that will demonstrate to you how transportation dollars are being spent. We typically produce pie charts showing like how money is allocated among different types of projects. So you'll get a sense of whether, or not whether, how much money is being allocated toward infrastructure versus safety versus reliability and so on. And we'll also produce some pie charts showing you how much money is being spent by all of our agency partners. I'm going to try really hard to arrange and have staff from all the jurisdictions in attendance. So again, you take the next month, write down whatever questions you have, bring those to the CAC meeting, and we'll try really hard to have someone available to answer questions for you on the spot. And then at the end of next month's meeting, we're going to be asking the committee to recommend that the MPO board approve the updated tip. And that's all I have for today, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have at this time.
All right, thank you, Johnny. Appreciate that. That was a really good recap. Are there questions from the committee of Johnny Wong about this presentation? He's laid out a pretty aggressive schedule for us.
Sir?
Yes, Rick Fernandez.
Hey, Johnny.
Hey, Rick.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this real short. I'm just hoping you might be able to direct us to line items on the tip, either 1, 2, or 3 tables that I may have missed. First of all, and I'm going to make reference to sections that relate to the Tampa Bay Next project. That probably will mean more to you and me than it will to a lot of other people, but it'll shorthand it a little bit. First of all, section 4 of Tampa Bay Next, which is the West Shore interchange. I see one entry on table 1, the very last line that speaks to that. Is there any other part of the tip that addresses section 4, the West Shore interchange?
I do not believe that there are any other entries on table 1 or 2 for the West Shore interchange. The only other part of the tip that it may appear is in the regional priorities, because the West Shore interchange is the top priority for that trip working group. I don't believe that we included a table showing all of the regional priorities just yet, but sometime over the next month, you may see that added.
Okay, so stay tuned is the message. All right. Section 5 of TB Next, that's the interstate between West Shore Interchange and downtown. Is that in here somewhere? I didn't see it.
Let me quickly scan. It would, if it is in there, it would be in major investments. I actually was working with my team to get this completed really quick so that you could have it for review. So I haven't had a chance to spend a lot of time on all the projects. Rick, I'm not seeing it. So my initial reaction is going to be to say, no, it's not. I don't see it in table 2 under major investments.
See, Beth is raising her hand.
Alden. Mr. Chair, is it all right if I address
Beth, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify about section 5, and that is that portion between the West Shore interchange and the downtown interchange. So the project that is currently proposed is now part of the package for the West Shore interchange. So basically, the express lanes that come off of the Howard Franklin Bridge would be carried through the West Shore interchange, and two of them, one in each direction, would come all the way to downtown and would tie in to the downtown interchange at the Ashley Drive on and off ramp. And so that is where the project that was, I guess, formerly known as Section 5 now exists as part of that funded project.
Is it, Mr. Chair, may I pose a question directly?
Sure, please.
To either Beth or Johnny. Is that narrative, Beth, that you just shared with us, is that somehow going to be captured in the tables so that someone would be able to read it and understand that Section 4 and Section 5 of the old TB Next now is basically Section 4? It kind of sounds like it's a conglomeration of Sections 3, 4, and 5. Howard Franklin, West Shore Interchange, and then Section 5 all the way into downtown. It's all been packaged together, it sounds like.
Well, Howard Franklin, Section 3 is a separately listed project. But certainly we can clarify how the West Shore Interchange project is described.
Okay, yeah, because Section 4, the West Shore Interchange, the section that Johnny and I were just discussing, which is the last line of Table 1, doesn't say any of that. So that's, I think, might be interesting to somebody. It is to me. Section 6 is the downtown interchange. We've already talked about that. It's line item 57 under Table 2. Section 7 is north of downtown. That's Section 56. I don't see any other references anywhere in the tables as to either of those two sections. Am I missing anything there, Johnny?
Rich, can you say those, or Rick, can you say those again?
Yeah, Table 2 for both line items 56 and 57.
Okay, yeah, downtown interchange is 57. I believe that's the only reference. And then 56, the portion that goes north to Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 1 sec to open up Table 2 before I answer you. So I know that those are the only places that referenced in Table 2. On Table 1, the only major capacity projects we have are Howard Franklin. Well, I'm kind of highlighting it with my cursor. Howard Franklin Bridge and Rio Street.
So is that the answer, or are you still looking?
One additional point where Section 7 will show up in the TIP document as a whole is that I believe, as we discussed last year, the portion of Section 7 that is south of Hillsborough Avenue, so I-275 south of Hillsborough Avenue to I-4 is funded. And so that'll show up in the third part of the TIP, the funded projects.
Okay. And then Section 8, heading out east from downtown, is that in here or has that been dropped?
Rich, you're on mute.
There are a number of projects on I-4 in Section 3 of the draft tip.
Section 3, you mean Table 3?
Yeah, Table 3.
Okay, so the old Section 8 is somehow captured in there in several different line items. Is that what you're telling me?
Correct.
Okie dokie. And finally, I didn't see the terms express lanes or toll lanes anywhere. Are they just to be understood at this point? Or did I miss them? I know Beth just
express lanes. Express lanes appear on table 1. Sorry, I just closed it under the Howard Franklin Bridge project. I believe it was toward the end of table 1 list.
Okay, but only there?
I'll have to get back to you on that, Rick.
Okay.
Okay, Nikki, you have a question?
Yes. In regards to the questions, to expand on what Rick is asking, is it possible to either Johnny or Beth or anybody at the MPO, so we don't have a last minute surprise, which often happens in the tip, considering that this board, and this will go before the actual voting board, the amendment that was approved today for acquisition in Ybor City, if that gets rolled into this, can we please have a heads up in regards to any changes to this project, so that it doesn't just pop in at the last minute and take up a lot of our time when we're trying to work through all these different line items with different areas? And I do see it being a possibility now that if this gets approved, is that something that I could consider to be a possibility, Beth? Because if they approve it, it sounds like it could be completely adjusted as far as the segments go. Any thoughts on that?
That's a great question, Nikki, and I appreciate that question. As you've probably heard, there is, there's some federal funding coming to state of Florida for a lot of different types of infrastructure projects, and transportation is one of those. And so there is ongoing discussion in Tallahassee about what projects will be funded with the new federal dollars. It's possible that the interchange, the downtown interchange, could be funded with that. We won't know until there is an announcement from Tallahassee.
And just if you don't mind me following up with that, Beth, if we're not following our best practices or guidelines that you guys have worked so hard to establish at the Planning Commission and the MPO, could that impact our ability to actually get some of this federal funding for a big project?
So we have continued to bring the MPO's adopted priority list to the attention of our legislative representatives. And the downtown interchange is one of the projects on the priority list, along with other projects, obviously.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Nikki. Other questions from the committee about the presentation on the TIP? All right, Johnny, thank you very much. This has certainly been great groundwork. Beth, thanks for your input. You can be sure that we'll have an interesting meeting next month. Given the hour, committee members, I'm going to ask if there's any objection if we defer most of the next few items on our agenda. I hate to put off the discussion of the trails, but it's 12:30-ish or later, and I think it would be better received when we have a fresh start. I would like to ask Amy Espinoza if she wants to expand on Johnny Wong's report and bring us up to date on the subcommittee meetings that she's had regarding our preparations for the TIP. Amy?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think Johnny covered a lot of things. He peppered them through his presentation. But, first and foremost, I really want to give acclimates to Johnny and his team, as well as the engagement team. I think they have taken our feedback to heart and done a really fantastic job of incorporating that feedback into this presentation and will in the final draft. just a quick update about Monday's meeting. We only had one of our members that wasn't able to attend. And we gave additional feedback on the presentation that you just saw. And I think, I'm not sure if there's any more work for this subcommittee to do, but I would like to leave that open to our next meeting once the tip is presented to see if anyone feels like further clarification is needed. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amy. I think that's a good idea. I mean, the schedule is that we will have our next committee meeting on June 2nd. There'll be a week between that meeting and the public hearing that the MPO will have regarding the tip. And so I think it's a good idea to leave open the possibility of a subcommittee meeting either before June 2nd, possibly, or certainly after our June 2nd meeting, just to clarify things. Rich Clarendon, did you have a closing comment as we try to wrap up?
No, just I appreciate everybody's patience. I think, this has been a lengthy meeting, and I don't want to make it any longer, but I think the discussion was valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. I do too. I think I want to thank those of you in the room and those of you online for hanging in there for a long but very fruitful meeting. Is there any other new business to come before the committee at 12:45? Seeing, wait a minute, there is a hand up. Excuse me. I can't tell who it is because their hand's covering their face. Oh, it's Amy. I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. This is just, I'll make this quick, I promise. Based on the conversation we had about the 7 homes, I am really interested in doing some independent work. I will volunteer to actually go speak to those people if they answer the door to kind of get their opinion and bring that back under members' interest. I'm very open to working with Dana if she has the time. I don't even know, but this is something that I think is important to do. Just for my clarity and hopefully others. So that's
okay. Good. Thank you. I think if you're able to make those connections, I think there'd be a lot of members of this committee interested, and I'm sure the DOT would be interested in that feedback. Seeing no other hands here or online, thank you all again for your patience and hanging in there. We've had another productive meeting. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.